enormous suffering for the Afghans.
Right.
It's exactly the same arguments we heard for the invasion of Iraq. I mean, Saddam Hussein was an enormous threat to the entire world, we were told, and he wasn't. And we have seen the suffering, and also in the United States. And now you struggle to find the one American who is in favor of the invasion of Iraq. At the time, 95% supported. This invasion is not even supported by the majority of Americans, and it's highly unlikely to achieve the result. The result which the two gentlemen here argue is that the world will be better off with a new government in Iran. But what's the space for people in Iran who oppose the government under the attack of the United States to go out in the street and do something?
Correct.
Trump even told the Iranian people, you should stay at home when I bomb you. Well, how can any regime change happen on the ground in...
because they wait for the bombing to end, we will clear the passage for you. Or did they miss the window? When the January uprising was happening on the streets, should the outside intervention have happened then? Or have two events happened at disparate times, and that's why they are not
We should
synced?
accept that there are limits to foreign interference. If you don't like a government, and there are many governments in the world I don't like, leave it to the people of that nation to change their government. If you try to do it from outside, in nearly all cases you fail. There are a few examples, but nearly all American regime change operations in the last 70 years have failed. Many of them spectacularly hit back towards the United States, as the gentleman said. And the attack on the Iranian Prime Minister in the 1950s spectacularly was as a boomerang hit the United States. So why involve yourself in all these regime change operations when history tells us it's much more likely to fail than to succeed?
I'm just asking you this, did Trump have this in his head, even in his first term, that there are 5 rogue nations and I need to sort them out for stability? Venezuela needed to be sorted, and because of the Chinese influence, and China is the main adversary. Iran needed to be sorted because of China's investment in Iran, so much so that the technology transferred to the level to which their ballistic missiles program, it's all been helped and designed by the Chinese. That's the level of involvement. So is that the larger game, that let me take out the rogue elements that have been planted who got Chinese and Russian support one by one and reduce it to 1 or 2 rogues only and remove the rest? Is there any logic in Trump taking this line and then approaching Iran?
I'm not sure if this logic is within Trump's mind, but by the way, that's for sure there is a growing confrontation in the world between autocracies and democracies. If you think about the very strict coordination between China, Iran, and Russia on many different issues. And as you said, China was the most important purchaser of oil from Venezuela and Iran, and both under sanction. And China transferred technologies to Iran that was, with this technology, Iran was able to build a ballistic missiles program. And it's difficult to deny that the ballistic missiles program, together with the legal nuclear program, poses an existential threat to the state of Israel. You said before, October 7th, that does not came out from nothing.
There is fundamental issue here, is that when the United States started the policy of regime change by force, we all saw throughout the 3 decades of this policy being followed up. Whether it's in Iran, also 1953, Mossadegh prime minister, the democratically elected, was removed by the American, the CIA and the MI5 and even the Mossad. And then they brought the Shah. That's okay. If you want to bring democracy, you do not have to attack a religious leader, of a supreme leader, of sentiment among the Shia community in the world. This is one. The second part, you're attacking a school, you're killing 160 children between the age of 10 and 12, and you people asking the President Trump, did you attack a school? He said what they were doing on Saturday. I mean, there is no difference whether the children died or no. It's for him that Saturday school is open. So what I'm trying to say, regime change, President Trump himself, criticized his predecessor.
Killing of the 170 odd children is tragic. But those 30,000 protesters who were shot dead point
How
blank.
you know 30,000 protesters?
So,
we
okay.
know.
Even if
we
there were
have people in the
3,000
region.
protesters who were
I'm
shot
sorry.
down point
the-
blank, how can you broad brush that?
I am
How
not
can
saying
you just justify
this is
that?
the largest demonstration in Iran since 2006. I have
The
been following
religious
it.
leader,
I traveled
the religious
extensively in
leader
the region.
issues a fatwa with a clock tower saying 2027, 8,000 ballistic missiles and death of Israel. We're going to wipe out Israel, and it's celebrated
Go by
out
the
there with
narrative
his
of
sanctions.
Israel Ben Gurion said
the
the Arab want to throw us to the sea, and then he said it, and we adopted.
What is the doctrine of the
foolishly.
Hamas? Wipe out the Jews, kill all Israel. Wipe out all Jews. Death to Israel, kill all Jews. That's the doctrine of the Hamas. What did the Khomeini declare after the 12-day war happened? 8,000 ballistic missiles, and 2027 I want to wipe out Israel. Why did he say that if his intent was not there to try and do? See, moment you have this kind of a position, I will wipe you out or you will wipe me out, and everybody worries if I don't wipe him out, he will wipe me out. There will always be conflict. Yes, Jeff.
I think any sensible people recognise that there's got to be an accord with Israel and recognition of the right of the
Oslo
state.
agreement was there.
No, but the recognition of the right of the state of Israel to exist by all the countries in the region.
We
saw with the Abraham Accords a real movement in that direction. Saudi Arabia was on the point of signing up to the Abraham Accords. That is what triggered the Iran-sponsored Hamas attack on Israel on October the 23rd. So Iran wants to ensure that chaos and catastrophe continues in all of those areas.
But do we justify the killing of 67,000 Palestinians and buried 20,000
Well, we don't-
underground?
I have
It's
to
not
say,
about
listen,
justifying.
it-
It's about
all that is a
who wants
tragedy.
peace actually.
Yes.
Which entity wants peace? Eric, we got 5 minutes. That's all. So we'll just focus on the Strait of Hormuz problem also after you make your point. Yes, Eric.
I think we need to go back to what is global recognized laws which are enshrined in the UN Charter, which says you cannot attack another nation,
Correct.
even if you don't like the leader of that nation. And it's fair that people didn't like Mr. Khamenei because many of the accusations
What
say,
about Russia's attack on the Ukraine?
It-
What
which
did the
is of
United
co-
Nations do
which
about
is
that?
of course completely illegal, and we need to condemn both the Russian attack on Ukraine as well as Israeli attacks on Gaza, as well as the US attack on Iran. If you don't do that, there's no any laws left longer in the world, and it's a law of the jungle, and any nation which is bigger than the other can freely attack that nation with any excuse.
Yeah, because China can attack Taiwan
But
tomorrow.
just one,
It gives them the reason
one
to
comment
do that.
about
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
Because China has a very different approach to the US. By the way, China has the same approach as India,
Yeah.
which is they work with whoever is in government everywhere. Both China and India has worked very well with the Khamenei government of Iran, but they will work very well with the new government also, because they don't interfere in the internal affairs. If a new government of Iran comes forward and work with the international community, China will be very happy. They work with the new government of Venezuela and import oil from there, because China's interest is not in who is running any other nation. China's and India's interest is international trade, good global relations, not to portray one leader for another
I
nation.
have to say, it's a travesty to say that Israel attacked Gaza. Hamas attacked Israel. Israel then responded. Israel moved out of Gaza in 2005. They forcibly removed Israeli settlers. They handed Gaza over to the Palestinians. And what happened? Within days, there were rocket attacks from Gaza into Israel. That is the problem.
The attack has never stopped ever since the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip.
Now,
never.
See,
It's
my,
written
my,
in
my
the
point is, every time you're going to say you did wrong, the other side is going to say you did wrong. Where's the solution to this? Right now, all of our countries are going to suffer because the Strait of Hormuz is blocked.
Yes.
There's no trade, there's no commerce, there's no economics. Both sides are going to, no side has,
So that brings me to
fund
the
of-
answer of your questions, that the United States is fighting two wars in the region. One is a global war. It's a conflict of interest with the superpower. They wanted to control the Strait of Hormuz. There is a Red Sea, the Mediterranean. So the global trade is affected and impacted. European and China and India and the rest of the world affect. And the second part, this is our narrative, what we understand. It's not the conspiracy theory, that Israel dominance in the region is to be prevail economically, militarily, and
The Gulf countries are afraid of Iranians. The Muslim
Why they're
nations
afraid?
themselves, the OIC
Why
itself
they're
has
afraid?
not come
Give me-
out and backed
give me
Iran.
history of
And
So-
Gulf countries made the right choice with the Abraham Accords. That solution is peace. Solution is dialogue. And when United Arab Emirates and Bahrain decided to sign a peace deal with Israel, with the Abraham Accords, made a great choice because
why you have to go
they
for
bet
a
on
new,
peace.
Why you have to go for a new
Iran
sort of
invested on
religion
missiles.
when you can implement what you have?
The Abraham Accords were supposed to be signed by all nations to bring stability.
Exactly.
Who disrupted it?
We always want.
That's a question.
We
Jeff,
don't have a problem
Jeff,
with the Jew.
Jeff to your left and Gianni to your right have
Iran
asked this
disrupted.
question.
I am
Iran,
ready.
exactly.
Final word, Eric. We're going to wind this up.
Not
Saudi
even
Arabia
Saudi-
refused
not
to
even
sign
Saudi Arabia.
They
agreed
were going to
the
sign
Abraham-
it,
sorry.
and then suddenly
Yeah.
you have this whole
not-
attack on Israel and so on.
Not even Saudi Arabia agreed to the Abraham Accord because they wanted Israel out of Gaza before
But
they
it
were
would
ready
have
to
done.
do something
It
like
would
that.
have done.
But
It would have done.
let's agree
It
with the
would have
last
done.
comment from our Italian friend here. What is needed is a dialogue to resolve the core issues here and to stop the world moving into the law of the jungle. That will be very dangerous for India and for everyone else.
Absolutely. Fair point that the gentlemen here make. Let's hope the wise men have spoken and wisdom prevails overall. We need peace and not conflict all around us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us here on this broadcast and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you. Thank you. These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases and the Iranians. Are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. Sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US airbase
With missiles, yes, as well.
with missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
Now that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or
of
it was a SAM
interception.
that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand when it is targeting these air bases, Iran, we'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
Yes.
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a
this?
mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers, just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and counting, 600,000 and counting. This is in 6 days, 2 hours, 56 minutes.
Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for staying tuned to CNN News 18. I'm Kritsween Valia. We keep up with more breaking news coming in this afternoon. We have a reaction from US Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Lando, who says India should understand that we are not going to make the same mistakes with India that we made with China 20 years ago. Now, these comments have been made by the US Deputy Secretary of State at the Raisina Dialogue 2026. He also said, the next thing we know, you are beating us in many commercial things. So possibly a remark that has been passed off amid the ongoing conversations taking place between India and the United States as far as the trade agreement is concerned, categorically stating that India should understand we're not going to make the same mistakes that we made with China 20 years ago. He also says this is in terms of how you'll be able to develop all these markets, and the next thing we know, you're going to be beating us in the commercial space. So that's a reassurance that's coming in from the United States, because remember, the trade negotiations and conversations around it for sure have taken a backseat at the moment given the ongoing conflict in West Asia. But this once again a promising statement made by the US Deputy Secretary of State during the ongoing Raisina dialogue. Listen in.
Excited about the trade deal that is almost at the finish line now, and think that can be the basis for really unlocking almost limitless potential. And so we are very much excited on focusing with India on these economic and commercial opportunities. And so, but again, India should understand that we're not going to make the same mistakes with India that we made with China 20 years ago in terms of saying, oh, we're gonna let you, be able to develop all these markets, and then the next thing we know, you're beating us in a lot of commercial things. We're going to make sure that whatever we do, it's fair to our people, because ultimately we have to be accountable to our own people, just as the government of India has to be accountable to its people. So again, I think on the commercial economic front, it's incredibly bright.
A bright and a promising future between India and the United States, but this is a remark that will not go unnoticed. Akanksha Swaroop joins us with more. Akanksha, we clearly heard the US Deputy Secretary of State say in as many words that we will not make the same mistake that we made with China 20 years ago. Whatever trade negotiations take place have to be mutually beneficial.
Absolutely, and this is also an underhand remark coming in from Christopher Landau, Kritsween, the US Deputy Secretary of State, who is currently making that address at the Raisina dialogue. Now, let's put this into perspective. Yes, he's sounding reassuring when it comes to, say, the prospects of doing business with India and a bilateral trade agreement, which should be happening anytime now in March, as had been confirmed by the Indian Commerce Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal. But more importantly, the analogy is now being drawn with China. While that may be heartwarming for several economists over here, that India is indeed in the league of the big guns like China, but US is very mindful of that, and that is what Christopher Landau is doing when he's drawing that parallel. He's saying that we are not going to make that same mistake that we did with China, that we allow you to develop those markets, and then our own interests of the people, which is the American people, gets compromised. So he's also speaking to the MAGA audience of Donald Trump. He's also speaking to that very philosophy that Donald Trump used to arrive in the White House, which is make America great again. And that is exactly what Christopher Landau has said, that if it is about about the Indian government and the interests of protecting the Indian people. Similarly, it is up for us to protect the interests of the American people, and that will always be our top priority. So it's also a reminder at a very crucial, critical juncture, this when India and the United States are sitting right at that point where they are going to finalize the bilateral trade agreement. We don't know if the ongoing conflict in West Asia is sort of going to delay that further and the Supreme Court's ruling, but we can tell you that this is a reminder that it will be US which will continue to call the shots, whether it is in terms of global economy, and that is exactly what Donald Trump is doing by embarking on that war in West Asia, challenging China's dominance in West Asia as well. So Christopher Landau, in fact, only echoing the actions of his president.
That the United States will continue to trade with caution is the pointed remark that he's made at the ongoing rise in our dialogue. Akanksha, stay on with us. There's more breaking news that's just come in. So putting out details for our viewers as we speak, India is telling refiners to maximize LPG output for domestic sales only. So that's the latest bit of breaking news update that's just come in. Do remember, a lot of focus as we speak on how India will look at its energy requirements amid the ongoing West Asia war, especially given that the Strait of Hormuz is closed for one and all, and we're seeing the kind of the ship traffic there also in a sense get blocked since Iran had announced that it will stay shut. Given that, we're seeing a lot of interim measures already being taken by India. It's turning to other nations for gas. The United States in the latest has also, remember, offered a 30-day waiver to procure Russian oil. But India also telling refiners to maximize LPG output for domestic sales only. Pallavi Ghosh joins us with more details. This is in line with ensuring that we don't compromise on our energy requirements, Pallavi.
Yes, and absolutely. And Christine, apart from that, it also is the government's position that we are in a comfortable position. Apart from having adequate supplies of crude oil and energy products, we also have adequate supplies of LNG and LPG, which should last from 15 to 30 days. That's the calculation of the government. And what happens is that there are stocks which are available of LPG, which gets converted to LNG. And now all the stakeholders have been asked to step up their production so as to ensure that there is no shortage as far as the consumers are concerned. What happens in case of shortage, as we all know, Christine, is there's also an impact on the pricing. That is what the government really wants to avoid. Government's position is that we are comfortable and the consumers have nothing to worry about in terms of a huge spike in the prices. But more importantly, the government also wants to ensure that there is no panic buying, there is no hoarding which takes place, and hence this needs to step up the production.
Okay, so that's a word of caution that's coming in from the government sources now pointing to how an attempt will be made to maximize the LPG output for domestic use only, domestic sales only, and India asking all its refiners to maximize production on LPG and also make fuel available only to 3 state-run companies. And we also have the names, Pallavi, isn't it? We seem to have lost that line. The 3 companies that I just mentioned are Indian Oil, HPCL and BPCL. It's a government order that clearly highlights how only these 3 companies will be given fuel. So fuel will be made available only to these 3 state-run companies. Now, a host of measures have been announced by India already. Remember, it's turning to a few countries like Australia, for instance, for its LPG needs, and those countries also in complete agreement as far as crude oil is concerned. Again, there's a plan B in place. At the moment, India is comfortably positioned, especially given the reserves that it has, which is going to keep India in a comfortable position for the next 6 to 8 weeks, followed by now possibly another 30-day waiver that the United States has also granted, remember, which has also led to a little bit of politics here in India, with the opposition Congress of the opinion that who is United States to really allow us, grant us or refuse permission to procure oil from what suits us, in this case Russia, because remember, that's one important source being looked at as we speak. There are other parallel sources that India had already looked at. In the last 5 to 6 days, government is holding negotiations on this front on a daily basis. But now India will be allowed for 30-day period, India will be allowed to procure Russian oil. Remember, Russian oil was still being procured. It's not as though in the interim, amid the negotiations with the United States on a bilateral trade deal, the oil procurement from Russia had come down to nil. India was still purchasing Russian oil. Just the quantity had gone down a tad bit, and that could see an uptick given this 30-day waiver or concession that has been granted by the United States of America. In the meanwhile, you have this one plan that India is looking at in terms of LPG. India telling refiners to maximize LPG output for domestic sales only. India's asked all the refiners to maximize production of liquefied petroleum gas and make fuel available only to 3 state-run companies. Let's talk about the execution in detail. Once again, Pallavi continues to stay on with us. Pallavi, how is this execution going to play out with fuel being made available only to Indian Oil, HPCL and BPCL? What is the practice that we'll see possibly in the next few days?
So we're going to wait for some more clarification, which is really going to come in from the government. But Christine, the government has been making it very clear that, first of all, that the 24/7 monitoring of the situation is taking place, and that monitoring is not just taking cognizance of what's happening along the Strait of Hormuz or the route. It is also happening as far as the supplies which are available with that. That's also an important factor, and that is why in these daily briefings you have of the minister along with the CMDs of all the oil companies, of Petronet, so on and so forth. All of them are basically keeping a tab on the situation. We've been pointing this out, which government sources have been telling us, is that there has been 25 days of crude oil, 25 days of the energy products which are available, which is a total of 50 days. As far as the LPG and LNG is concerned, it is 25 to 30 days. But more importantly, Christine, these are ones which can be replenished. These stocks can be replenished to meet up with the supply as well as the demand. And of course, procurement of LPG from other countries. We have our own, resources as well, but we are looking at other countries, and that is why we are constantly in touch with OPEC, IAEA. We are in touch with Canada. We are in touch with Australia. So that is why the government feels that this is a comfortable situation for us. But yes, stepping up the production is also to ensure that the pricing doesn't get affected.
And in the latest, we've already heard the US Secretary also make it amply clear. Treasury Secretary has said a 30-day waiver has been granted to India. It's led to a little bit of politics here in India, but that's going to come in as a huge relief too, isn't it, Pallavi?
Christine, but there is also clarification which has come in by way of a government sources that we had not stopped buying Russian oil. The quantity has gone down, but that is also because our procurement of Russian oil was depending on the demand and the supply. So because we wanted to go in for the national interest, the best possible pricing, that is why we were opting for Russian oil, and that that procurement has been coming down. It's not got anything to do with any amount of pressure. But yes, many would see this as a reassuring word, but certainly the opposition parties are going to see this as yet another example of American pressure on India's politics and economics.
Okay, many thanks, Pallavi, for joining us with all those details. We'll keep revisiting this story. It's a story that impacts global economy, so keeping a sharp focus on this one. For now, shifting our attention to more breaking news that's just come in. There has been a significant drop in maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz as on expected lines. The AFP infographic of the Strait of Hormuz clearly shows traffic before and after the announcement of the blockade by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Now, this, remember, is the latest coming in, and we'll also try and establish the story by going over to our colleagues who are going to be putting out details here. But for now, what we can tell you is that there has been a significant drop in what we're seeing clearly through these maps as well. Akanksha is with us on the broadcast. Akanksha, please join me here. Let's take our viewers through this one map, which we'll shortly pull up. This is the AFP infographic of the Strait of Hormuz. It's very interesting how not much has changed the last 5-6 days in terms of improvement, at least. So the last 5-6 days, at least improvement wise, we've not seen a greater inflow and outflow of the ships or the vessels from this area. But yes, what do we see here before and after?
I love it.
Let's break it down for our viewers. In green, scattered dots is what the what the maritime traffic looked like in the Strait of Hormuz. As you can see, this is the image coming in from 1st of January this year, cut to 3 months later. Look at the traffic. It's just completely empty, the entire strait. In fact, it's before the strait and after the strait ends. Remember, it's a very small chokehold over there as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned. It's nearly empty. And from what information that is pouring in now, Kritsween, is that even the Chinese vessels are receding because the conflict is now turning into a maritime conflict as well, whether it is Strait of Hormuz or in the IOR, that is the Indian Ocean region. We are seeing the conflict spill over and challenging the maritime security. But coming back to the Strait of Hormuz, this is an image that's come from 4th of March, and it is as recent as that. Remember, 80% of the oil and LNG traffic used to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. India's own needs, in fact, 1/4 of our needs were met through a route that was, in fact, 40% of our oil, Brent crude, and 50 to 60% of our LNG. All of that, in fact, used to come through the Strait of Hormuz. And if the IRGC has now announced that there's going to be a lockdown out here, even though there is no official declaration, but there is one.
So what is the story all about? What is it that the IRGC has said? Is there any official communication that's taken place? There's another official with the UN from Iran who's gone on to say, look, we are not to be blamed for the closure of Strait of Hormuz. So there's a lot of back and forth that's also underway.
I want to tell our viewers that Strait of Hormuz is very much strategically currently in favor of Iran. If you look at the location, Porbandar is a port of Iran which is very much located here. It is adjacent to the Strait of Hormuz. This is the only key bargaining chip that Iran is actually sitting over, because once they lock this down, the overall global needs of as far as Brent crude, LNG, LPG, all of those are brought to a screeching halt. And this bargaining chip currently is what Iran is actually sitting over. More importantly, it's also led to a bloodbath in the stock markets, all the way from Nifty to Dow. Here in the Dalal Strait, we've seen the dollar actually hike up by 10% almost since compared to just a week ago, last Friday.
Imagine what happens to the global oil supply. The number of vessels you can see here as of Jan 1 this very year, vis-a-vis what we see here, there certainly is going to be a negative impact on global economy, and that's exactly what experts are worried about. Thank you so much, Akanksha. We'll come back to you. We need to keep talking about this story, but for the moment, let's also shift our attention to more breaking news that's just come in a news update. We're learning Israeli army has said it's destroyed 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers overnight. It's an official communication by the IDF. Prior to the launch towards Israel, the Israeli Air Force has dismantled 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers. The Israeli Air Force, guided by the Intelligence Directorate, dismantled 6 missile launchers yesterday, which is Thursday. This was minutes before they were intended to be launched towards the territory of the State of Israel. In addition, 3 advanced Iranian defense systems were also dismantled. The combined effort to deepen the impact on the Iranian regime's firing and defense capabilities has been conducted systematically, says the IDF, and since the beginning of Operation Rising Lion. So that's a communication that's come in from the Israeli army. They've destroyed 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers overnight. Now that is one of the many intended targets and objectives of both the United States and Israel, to destroy missile launchers across Iran, though Iran continues to say that our missile launchers are still very much capable of continued strikes both in the Gulf and also in Israel. Now we've seen in the Gulf, Iran is not stopped. We've seen though several missile launchers be taken down and completely destroyed, but the attack on these Gulf nations pretty much continues, which is also regularly prompting the United States of America to ensure as many Americans evacuate at the earliest and return to America. A lot of damages have been received by these US military assets or US military bases that are located located in the heart of some of these countries. But so far, this is the big claim coming in from the IDF. They've destroyed 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers in the latest. I do want to bring in Sanjay Suri joining us live from Israel into the conversation. Sanjay, hope you're doing well. Give us a sense of what you're witnessing on ground zero. A little while earlier, we'd heard of reports of explosions in Tel Aviv as well. Similar reports trickling in from Jerusalem. You're looking up in the sky. Can you hear something? Can you see something? Give us a sense of what's happening.
Yes, I can hear something. There are very loud explosions happening here. We've heard the sound of missiles overhead just now. I'm going to try and see if you can see some of this stuff in the sky up there. I don't know if you can see those patterns in the sky.
Very clearly, but yes, we can definitely see the patterns in the sky. Correct.
That is, I heard very loud bangs just a moment ago, and the sound of engines, clearly the sound of missiles overhead, and also banging of rocket missiles being launched from the ground level around us to intercept these. So there have been a number of interceptions clearly. This is now a situation that is developing in Tel Aviv, and I don't know if you can see, there are others coming up, right? The sun is blinding us here, but there are other patterns there. Now, this is a clear ballistic missile attack on Tel Aviv. The last few days have been relatively quiet. There have been some attempts to attack Tel Aviv. Those have been neutralized, and it would appear that this latest round of missiles from Iran has been intercepted as well. The danger, of course, is at the ground level, not just from a missile hit, but from falling debris. So we do need to be a little cautious. But over the last few minutes, or few moments, I should say, when we've been speaking, it has quietened a bit. I'm not hearing any more bangs. I'm not hearing any more missiles or the jet engine sounds of these missiles in interception mode. So if you will give me a minute, we can resume our conversation. Right now, it appears to have settled down a bit at the moment.
Okay, Sanjay, fingers crossed. We hope you don't get to hear any such explosions. But for now, this also means that Israel and United States have not been able to completely destroy Iran's military capabilities, because those missiles are still being launched from Iran towards Israel. Sanjay, stay safe. We will keep coming back to you. That's all we could pack for you for now in this edition of News. Thanks for watching. We'll be right back after a very short break.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. Sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US air base
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
No, that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand, when it is targeting these air bases, Iran, we'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion, or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If Israel, US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
Yes.
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a
this?
mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again. And then
hello and welcome to CNN News 18 on our continuing coverage on the conflict in the Middle East as the tensions only escalate between the United States, Israel and the regime in Tehran. I am Ayushman Singh Jamal.
I'm Hem Kaur Saro, and of course, as we continue to bring you all the developments from West Asia, the narrative war has taken a hold as well. Escalatory rhetoric coming in from both sides, showing no signs of abating anytime soon. Here's a quick check on what we're tracking for you right now. Let's get started. As oil prices spike sharply, big energy boost for India. United States issues a 30-day waiver, allowing India to continue purchasing Russian oil.
US strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Iranian ballistic missiles attack drops. Now, what we are seeing is that a drop has been of 90%, while drone attacks have fallen by 83%.
Iran then launches fresh strikes on Bahrain and Kuwait, while a state-run oil refinery was targeted in Bahrain. A US base is hit in Kuwait. No reports of casualties so far.
And Israel dismantles 6 Iranian missile launchers just minutes before they were intended to be launched towards its territory. Dramatic visual surface of the ongoing onslaught between the two nations.
First visuals of the Sri Lanka Navy rescuing Iranian sailors who survived the torpedo attack on the Iranian warship. 32 survivors were brought ashore following the attack.
And India's access to critical energy supplies received a temporary lift after the United States approved a narrowly defined 30-day waiver allowing Indian refiners to purchase Russian oil already stranded. We're getting a piece of breaking news that's coming in, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the situation that's emerging in the Middle East. Now, when it comes to the debate at home, with opposition leaders also questioning why Washington is in a position to permit India's purchases and demanding clarity on what leverage the US holds over New Delhi. They argue that the center must explain its stance and assert stronger independence in its foreign policy decision-making. India is seeking US support to secure marine insurance cover for vessels transporting oil from the Middle East, the government's way to ensure continuity of energy supplies amid disruptions in the Strait. And big breaking news that's coming in, where Iran has launched ballistic missiles at central Israel. So central Israel facing the onslaught of the Iranian missile barrage. Remember, as we are pointing out, that despite the fact that there are strikes coming in from both the United States and Israel on those missile launchers in Iran, Iran continues to hammer Israel, especially central Israel, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem being having the bullseye on them from the Iranian side. We'll try to get more details from Ground Zero because we have our very own Sanjay Suri reporting from Tel Aviv. But that is the big update that's coming in, where Iranian ballistic missiles have been launching attacks on central Israel. Remember, it's not just the ballistic missiles. The Iranian drone launchers with a capacity of production of 10,000 per month. That is what Iran currently boasts. And these drones are causing significant damage to the energy infrastructure as well as several key military and civilian installations across Israel. And Tel Aviv and Jerusalem currently have the bullseye on them as the onslaught continues from the Iranian missile barrage, despite the fact that the United States and Israel are continuing their strikes against these military installations inside Iran. Iran seems to have the ability to move these military assets across their territory, allowing different launches from different positions across the Iranian territory. This is a very serious concern that's coming in, where despite the fact the tensions are escalating between the two nations, Iran still has the capacity to conduct these strikes.
Absolutely, of course, these are the retaliatory strikes that we are seeing right now. Iran, of course, has gone on the offensive, and a lot of US and Israeli assets in the wider West Asia region are going to increasingly become the targets of such ballistic missile attacks. Going forward as well, if we were to talk about the United States and Israeli attacks so far, they've struck more than 2,000 targets. This was just within the first 100 hours or so of the operation. Remember, we're also looking at the cost of this war. So far, it's raked up a bill of over $5 billion. This is US taxpayers' money that we're looking at also. But right now, in this big breaking news that we're bringing for you right now, it's Iran which has launched ballistic missiles at central Israel. As Ayushman just mentioned, of course, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv becoming the center of these targets in the latest that's coming in. Right now, volatility continues in the wider West Asia region.
Right, and it seems that there has been a miscalculation here. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're getting these visuals of that strike coming in from Tel Aviv. You can see these visuals on our screen, ladies and gentlemen. These are the missiles that are targeting central Israel. These are coming in from Tehran. We're getting these aerial shots of these missiles that have been launched from Tehran to target key installations inside central Israel. And you can see that people are scrambling to the bomb shelters as they're trying to even capture the trajectory of these missiles coming in from Tehran. You can see the trails of these missiles across the Israeli sky which are coming in, and this continues to be a threat for Israelis who consistently face these alarms. They have to rush into the bomb shelters. As you can see, the Iron Dome is also trying to intercept these missiles as they make their way towards Israeli territory. So that is the situation that Israelis are facing on a daily basis, as more and more ballistic missiles, and it's not just these ballistic missiles, it's also the drone strikes which are coming in from Iran to target those key installations. So Israel is pretty much prepared for these kind of contingencies, but the question remains, does the US have the stomach for this kind of conflict?
Right, and actually to that point, I want to add that, of course, as you mentioned, the Iron Dome, it's Iran that is having to put up with a very coveted Iron Dome and a sophisticated system here. Even certain missiles that have managed to pierce through the Iron Dome, that, of course, gives us a sense of the operational capabilities of Iran at this point also, especially at a time when its navy has become completely decimated. That's what reports are saying. But of course, this is something that we're looking at right now as well.
Right, but does it seem that Israel has made some level of a miscalculation, because Iran is now adopting the Hezbollah tactics, those homemade rockets, those drones, they are being used in these kind of strikes which are taking place inside Israel. We're also joined by Sanjay Suri, who's joining us from Tel Aviv to get the latest on these consistent ballistic missile strikes coming in from Iran against central Israel. Sanjay Suri, over to you. What is the situation currently on the ground?
Well, I hope this chat does not get interrupted by incoming missiles as did the last one, because you can almost hear these things before you see the traces in the sky. The sound of a whistling jet engine, the sound of a loud boom, which is an interceptor being launched from around us, and then you can see the traces of both in the sky and one hitting the other, and hopefully one hitting the other, which would mean that an interception has taken place once those lines appear to have crossed. But certainly there has been an attempt just a few minutes back to attack Tel Aviv with ballistic missiles. This assault has been intercepted. A couple of days there was another attempt that too has been intercepted. So far the attempts to hit Tel Aviv have been stopped. barring the one that came on day one of the war. So this is a war very much underway. It's a missile to intercept a war, and clearly Iran does have the capacity to launch missiles that are finding their way almost to target. They are being stopped just in time, but the capacity of Iran to launch such ballistic missiles clearly has not been degraded entirely. What we don't know is how much it has been reduced and how long Iran will be able to sustain this kind of attack.
Right, and also when we talk about the cost of war that we are increasingly also focusing on right now, we also have to see what this means going forward. Let's just going forward also discuss. Now, Sanjay, I want to ask you, when we talk about the Iron Dome, certain missiles and drones and the unmanned vehicles which Iran is going to be increasingly deploying in the region going forward as well, the strategy here very much appears to be that they will be, we will be seeing these drone swarms to inflict or try to inflict maximum damage on these US batteries in the region as well as Israeli batteries, further raking up the cost of this war.
Well, the cost of this war is very heavily imbalanced because a drone is $30,000–$40,000 to make, and a missile, an interceptor missile, a Patriot interceptor is $1 million plus, closer to $2 million. A third interceptor is upwards of $10 million, and that's just one interceptor. And we have signs that the US and Israeli forces could be running out, could be running short in any case, as SOS has been sent to bring back a THAAD and Patriot missile systems, Patriot systems particularly that were exported to South Korea. Clearly, there is a need to move them to West Asia and to position them around here. So this is an indication that there is some concern about the limited supply of these. And of course, later today in the White House, there's a meeting between President Trump and managers of a number of these companies that make these missiles, THAAD missiles particularly, like, so we going to have an attempt now from the US government and Lockheed Martin, I was going to say, an attempt from the US government to try and step up production, and this will have to be an urgent task because a THAAD missile system, a battery system, typically needs 1 or 2 years to assemble and to manufacture. So how fast the US can make how many, when they are needed, how many are needed, this is all a very difficult balance in the air now.
Right, and the question remains, will the rest of the Trump presidency be consumed by this conflict? Because this is the damage that US and Israel have inflicted on Iran. Sanjay, please stay with us, because if you look at all of these targets that they have hit, these are the key military installations as well as near the nuclear sites. But as per the IAEA, there hasn't been significant damage to those nuclear sites, which means that there hasn't been a leak of nuclear material from those areas. So you could avoid seeing a Chernobyl type situation emerging from those particular nuclear sites. But this is the problem. If you see the Persian Gulf and you see this area which is left pretty much bare, a lot of Iranian missile launchers as well as drone launchers have been moved into this area, and they are targeting a lot of the vessels as well as the Arab nations across the Persian Gulf, and they are causing immense damage to the energy infrastructure as well as military installations in those areas. You can take out the central leadership, you can take out the military installations, you can take out the nerve centers pretty much of the Iranian regime, but the defense capabilities seem to have gone underground. They have bunkers underground, they have command centers underground, which are coordinating the entire military infrastructure right now. The IRGC has pretty much taken control, and we're getting those details about how Khamenei put in those contingency operations in place to ensure that the IRGC can still control the military, and we're seeing that fight back coming in from Iran. Getting some more breaking news that's coming in, where Israel is bombarding Beirut as well. So as you can see, the war is also escalating against Hezbollah in Lebanon. That is the pitch that's coming in from Israel. Israel even expanding the ambit of the conflict inside Lebanon by targeting those Hezbollah bases. Also moving in its tanks to create a fresh buffer zone in southern Lebanon to take on the Hezbollah infrastructure. Hezbollah, remember, is one of the key proxy units of Iran, which continues to bombard several parts of Israel. And Israel now using the situation emerging with Iran to take on the entire Hezbollah infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Remember, Hezbollah pretty much runs Lebanon, and which is why Israel is now only expanding the ambit of war. You can see Beirut pretty much a war zone, pretty much looking like this ever since the October 7 terror attack, as Israel continues its entire bombardment run. And you can see a lot of parts of Beirut completely flattened after those Israeli airstrikes, and the Israeli military also moving into southern Lebanon. We try to get another view from Sanjay Suri as well. We'll see whether he's with us to get a view from Tel Aviv about the campaign that's emerging in Lebanon. But these are the visuals coming in from Beirut. You can see it's a literal war zone, smoke rising from this central part of the city as the bombardment operations continue against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Several of these buildings are from where these homemade rockets are used by the Hezbollah forces to launch their attacks into Tel Aviv as well as Jerusalem. And remember, that continues to be a cause for concern for the Israeli forces, given the fact that these homemade rockets are very cheap, they're easy to produce, and they are launched from these civilian areas against several parts of Israel and several military installations, as well as the civilian infrastructure in the key cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Sanjay Suri is back with us. He's reporting from Tel Aviv. So Sanjay, this expansion of the campaign in Lebanon, decode that for us. Does Israel feel that it has the opportunity to once and for all finish the Hezbollah threat?
You know, that is going to be a very difficult task, to finish Hezbollah once and for all, to finish this kind of Iran regime once and for all. As seen in Israel and as decided by Prime Minister Netanyahu, the aim has to be to keep Israel and to keep Israelis safe from missile launches of this kind, so that the future is safe, because Israel cannot live forever and on under this continuing threat and continuing attacks. So the aim is to protect Israel entirely. What that would mean that the last missile launcher, the last missile in Iran will need to be taken out. It will mean the last drone with Hezbollah to be taken out, not just the present stock, the capacity of anyone in future to make such weapons and to launch them, that needs to be neutralized, erased and made impossible. Now that is a very challenging ask. There's always a possibility, and given the way technology is moving with drones, for a very small unit to assemble quite sophisticated drones and to launch them lethally long distance. So whether this war will lead to securing Israel entirely for the future is far from certain.
All right, we have more breaking information coming in. Sanjay, please do stay on with us. There's going to be lots more to discuss on this as well. Now, Dubai residents are getting potential missile threats alert on their mobile phones. Residents of Dubai, were given to understand, have just received an Emirati Interior Ministry alert on their phones, urging them to shelter from potential missile threats. Remember, in Dubai, the situation remains rather volatile as well. And for more on this, we have Akanksha with us also. Now, Akanksha, let me just come to you. We're getting you more information from the newsroom as and when it comes in. Akanksha, what can you tell us about the situation in Dubai?
So this is in fact an alert which has been issued by the Emirati Interior Ministry, which is alerting all the Dubai residents to actually stay indoors, stay safe and not step out, because again, compared to say what we've seen in the last 3 days, the tensions did seem to de-escalate a little, but at the moment it seems that there's been a fresh spike with US bases across the Gulf, from Kuwait to say even the UAE particularly actually getting targeted. And that is why in fact friends and family members we all know in Dubai have also shared this information, that late night yesterday they received this alert from the Emirati Interior Ministry, and to quote them verbatim, they have in fact received alerts on their phones urging them to shelter from potential missile threats. And that's not breaking news anymore, because we've already seen a week ago how there were missiles being directed towards residential areas, and even though security analysts say that the geographic coordinates are targeting the US assets, but because these are densely populated locations, they are inadvertently colliding into say residential buildings and the various skyscrapers over there, which have led to various explosions. We've seen enough visuals of those.
Thank you so much for that, Akanksha. So, of course, as the situation stands, things rather volatile in Dubai at the moment as well. Advisories are being issued for the time being.
Absolutely, and we're getting some more updates coming in of the satellite imagery emerging from the Al Dhafra US base in the UAE, which is also coming under attack from the Iranian forces. We'll just get those visuals for you, but we're getting this update of satellite images from the Al Dhafra base in UAE. This is a US controlled base. You can see these different aspects of this US base in Al Dhafra in the UAE. You can see that different parts of this base have come under attack, and you can see like how different aspects of installations inside this base are facing those strikes from the Iranian forces. This is also in Tehran in Iran, where you can see these different aspects of those key nerve centers that have been targeted by the US as well as the Israeli forces. This is the Iran state broadcaster antenna, the Revolutionary Court, the Judicial Palace and Supreme Court, as well as the presidential complex. These nerve centers have pretty much been flattened by the US and Israeli forces. Now, if you look at the airbase in Jordan, this is the Muwafaq Salti air base in Jordan. You can see the entire base has pretty much been left charred by the Iranian strikes. So this is a significant blow to the US capabilities in the Middle East, given the fact that Iranian ballistic missiles and drones are able to cause this much damage on American assets in the Middle East. This hinders their entire ability to mobilize their forces. Then there is the Dahel base in Qatar. You can see the debris. You can see the size of the debris, which just shows the explosive power of the ballistic missiles as well as the Shahad drones that have been deployed by the Iranian forces, completely flattening out these installations. And these are static installations. They're not mobile installations which can mobilize other drones as well as countermeasures, and completely flattened, which means refueling, manpower deployment completely depleted when it comes to those installations in the Middle East. Then there is the Third battery near the Al Sadr base in UAE. You can see before how this Third missile, which is a very expensive and advanced missile deployed by the US forces, you can see how the entire base is intact. Then Iranian ballistic missiles and drone strikes completely flatten out that entire area. You can see that how these launchers are available in these dark parts over here, and then they are completely disappeared once you see those Iranian strikes. So you can see how when it comes to the military capabilities in the Middle East, the American capabilities to launch those counter strikes, that's why the Iranian regime is targeting these particular installations to ensure that their counter-offensive measures are completely depleted. Then there is another Third battery near Al Ruwais. This is also in the Middle East. You can see the dark parts over here. Once again, as we are pointing out, these are the dark parts which show the missile batteries which are operational at one point, and after the Iranian strikes completely disappeared. There's just one dot over here which just shows that those military capabilities for the Third missiles, which are essential for the countermeasures in the Middle East, being completely depleted by those Iranian attacks. This is only raising the cost of war for the United States, for Donald Trump, who is still in talks with defense contractors to boost production. Then you have the Al Dhafra US base in UAE, which we were talking about. You can see the charred remains of different aspects of the base over here, where Iranian missiles as well as drones have continuously bombarded these particular sites. They haven't been able to counter the drone threat coming in from Iran, because Iran at this stage has the capacity of building 10,000 of these drones every month, and you can see the explosive power of these drones, which are only sending chaos through the energy markets and slowly and steadily in this war of attrition depleting the military capabilities of the United States as well as Israel in the Middle East by particularly targeting these military bases, which the United States clearly did not have any contingency operations for. We're getting an update from my colleague Rifat, who's also reporting from Israel. This is what he got for us.
तो फिर से सायरन बज रही हैं इस्राइल में, टेल अवीव में हर तरफ से सायरन बज रही हैं, आप सुन सकते हैं। ये खतरे की घंटी होती है जब ईरान की तरफ से मिसाइल अटैक किया जाता है, मिसाइल अटैक लॉन्च किया जाता है तो सायरन बजती है, आप सुन सकते हैं। हर तरफ से सायरन बज रही हैं, उसका मतलब ईरान की तरफ से एक और मिसाइल अटैक जो है लॉन्च किया गया। लगातार मिसाइल अटैक्स जो है लॉन्च किए जा रहे हैं ईरान की तरफ से, और ये टेल अवीव का शहर है। सायरन हर तरफ से बज रही है और हमारा कैमरा है उसी डायरेक्शन पे जहां से ईरान है। तो ये देख सकते हैं आप एक्सक्लूसिव विजुअल्स, ये देखिए किस तरीके से मिसाइल जो है वो फेंके जा रहे हैं। ये न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया के कैमरा में कैद हो चुका है। यहां पे मिसाइल जो है ईरान का यहां पे शायद इंटरसेप्ट हुआ है। अभी हम देख रहे हैं, देख सकते हैं कि टेल अवीव में आसमान में किस तरीके से मिसाइल का छाप है। न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पे आप एक्सक्लूसिव ये विजुअल्स देख सकते हैं। ईरान की तरफ से मिसाइल अटैक लॉन्च किया गया और अब यहां पे हम देख रहे हैं कि ये बिल्कुल हमारी आंखों के सामने और जोरदार धमाका, ऊपर से बम बरस रहे हैं, आप देख सकते हैं।
Right, we're also joined by Lieutenant General KJ Singh, former Army Commander on the broadcast. Thank you, General Singh, for joining us as the war continues to rage in the Middle East. How do you assess the military capabilities of Iran to continue to persist in this onslaught from Israel, and the United States? Iran, even though it seems to have been bombarded, its nerve centers completely depleted and destroyed, it still has the coordination as well as the capabilities to launch counter-offensives.
Thank you and Jai Hind to all your viewers. What can be fairly assessed, because there is this wave of narrative shaping which is taking place, and there are boastful claims being made from both sides. But what can be fairly assessed is that Iran has suffered huge, big losses in terms of its top leadership. It has suffered destruction, extensive destruction. But has that completely destroyed their resilience? I'm not too sure. Here I would like to draw your attention to a report which appeared in New York Times, and it's not media narrative by Iran or something, it is New York Times. They tell us that, like you so graphically brought out, the attacks carried out on various bases. Now, what is getting destroyed on the American side is highly expensive and not easy to replace radars, radomes, and surveillance equipment. And that is the backbone which vectors all the defenses, all the escorts, and war fighting capability. Right. So, to a certain extent, like you brought out so well, that inexpensive drones, which are cheap, can be made by thousands, are destroying high-tech gadgetry of American bases.
Right.
At the end of this war, America will have to carry out a very harsh, very true check, assessment. Was it worth it to have unleashed this kind of thing? Because to suffer destruction on a high-tech equipment, economically it can be debilitating.
Right.
How will you replace that? And another factor which needs to be taken into account is that while you have degraded their command structure, have you completely destroyed it? No. There is this Revolutionary Guard, there is Basij militia. Right. Now, what is worrying is some of these people, steeped in the Shia culture of sacrifice and even suicidal kind of suffering, they have been unleashed as free radical agents. And in their own small groups, without coordination or an overarching command structure, they are unleashing attacks. Like it
right,
was
General Singh, we're getting an update when you talk about the command structure inside Iran. We're getting an update on that. My colleague Haim gets us more details.
Right, so this is the latest that we're hearing right now. Remember, Donald Trump has said that the goal here is the end of the current regime. However, that's not what we're seeing right now. But also, there is no clarity on what's really going to happen. And in the breaking news that we're getting right now, we're given to understand that Iran is purposely, deliberately delaying that decision, of course, due to security concerns and what the situation is in West Asia at the moment. Let's just go across to the to Akanksha in the newsroom. Akanksha, what can you tell us? One would expect that they would take such a strategic call.
And on expected lines, because remember just 2 days ago we had been informed that there was a prayer meet to happen to mourn the killing of the Ayatollah, which was supposed to be happening in Tehran, but this was a call taken by the IRGC to delay that prayer meet. The mourning, 3-day mourning period for the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has already started here, and what sources are telling us that the IRGC is still in fact commanding significant clout right now, even with regards to say the succession of Murtaza, which was a decision that the council had to take under pressure from the IRGC. They in fact have broken away from the overall protocol of nominating somebody who is in the bloodline of the Ayatollah. But as far as right now making that formal announcement that Murtaza is indeed going to be the next Ayatollah succeeding Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, there is a strategic decision to actually delay that announcement, because we know that inadvertently the attention will then shift to Murtaza and eliminating Murtaza, because Steve Witkoff and even the US President, all of Trump administration have issued a warning that anybody who continues with the same belief of targeting the United States, of targeting Israel, will, and if that is going to be the one who will be succeeding the Ayatollah, will be the next in the line of fire. So that's why there's a strategic decision.
Now, Akanksha, just for more clarity on that, of course, when Donald Trump says that he very much wants to be a part of whoever is elected next in Iran, how long can Iran also drag this out and play this cat and mouse game?
This is why their military strength right now is, going to decide the overall trajectory of not just the succession, but also the autonomy that Iran is currently exercising. They do believe that the IRGC is still a powerful, intimidating force right now. They command 150,000 troops, and even though the IRGC headquarters in Tehran have been targeted by Israel and the United States, the security experts are saying that there's only damage done to the buildings, and the force, the strength is still very much with the IRGC right now. So we'll have to see if US and Israel can actually influence the overall polity without boots on the ground.
All right, Akanksha, do stay on with us. Of course, there's going to be lots more to unpack. We're getting some more breaking information right now. Sounds of siren blaring at a British base in Cyprus. This is what we're hearing. Rhea, what can you tell us?
So here's where things are getting interesting, Haim, because we do know there are certain contradictory versions that came in from Keir Starmer. Now we are hearing of fresh sirens that are blaring in Cyprus. We're talking about the RAF Akrotiri here. Earlier also, the hangar of RAF Akrotiri has been attacked, although even the UK has come on record and they have said that it was not a direct Iranian attack. It could be possibly Iranian proxies. It could come in from Lebanon, because that is where the proxies have in fact been mobilized after these strikes on Iran by US and Israeli forces. Now there are fresh sirens that are blaring. We also know how a UK Royal Navy destroyer is already there in the Mediterranean. This is after the Iranian ballistic missiles ended up striking the hangar allegedly. So things are still very, very unclear. We also know that Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, has already allowed US to use the UK bases, but that also had happened before these strikes, the missile strikes at the hangar. So what really is happening at Cyprus? Is Iran directly involved? Is it the proxies that are now going ahead and striking the UK base? That also gets really interesting. But right now, this is the latest development. Sirens are definitely, they have been heard at the UK base there, the RAF Akrotiri, and this is the second such development that is happening in that area, which is now also looking at how this entire conflict has gone ahead and gone beyond just West Asia, gone further into getting involving nations like the UK and also France.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Greha. Of course, that gives us a better sense of where things stand right now. Of course, this is the latest that we're getting from Cyprus. Another piece of breaking information that we're getting right now, UK has arrested 4 people on suspicion of spying for Iran. Now, Akanksha, I quickly just want to also tie in the fact that when we talk about the European nations, of course, we know where Pedro Sanchez stands on this entire matter. Going forward, how long do you think European nations can rally behind what's happening in West Asia?
The fact of the matter is, go by the information that's just trickled in. 4 arrests have been made by the Scotland Yard. The counter-terrorism police unit of the Scotland Yard has arrested 1 Iranian national, 3 dual British Iranian nationals, so 4 arrests in total. They believe that they were spying on Jewish individuals and Jewish locations. So as much as Europe may want to maintain a cautious stance, as you rightly highlighted, Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, all of them have been of the view, along with the French President, that they do not want to directly get involved in this conflict, but it is inadvertently spilling over to Europe, as we see that there were these Iranian nationals who were spying on behalf of Iran on these Jewish members. And remember, you have the Jewish community spread all over the globe, particularly in the United States and Europe as well. So for how long will they be able to stay away, and or will they call for dialogue and diplomacy to take place? We'll have to see. But for now, we can tell our viewers that the Scotland Yard has made 4 arrests. 1 is of an Iranian national, 3 of them are British Iranian nationals.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Akanksha. So that's where things stand. This is the latest that we're getting right now. 4 arrests in UK on suspicion of spying. So this is the latest. And as Akanksha mentioned, there is some cautious distance there. But clearly, we're seeing the impact way beyond West Asia at this point as well. All right. So for more, let's just go across to Ayushman, who's bringing us more updates from the studio.
And absolutely, those are the latest updates which are coming in from the war zone. And as Haim was pointing out, the ambit of the entire conflict is only expanding. We will continue to track all those developments coming in. For now, a quick break. More news and updates on the other side.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens, air sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
No, that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand, when it is targeting these air bases, Iran, we'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion, or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export, or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely, the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes, or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only 1 is succeeding? How do you read
It's a mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers, just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and counting, 600,000 and counting. This is in 6 days, 2 hours, 56 minutes and 39.40 seconds. Per second, the cost is only going up to $11,574 dollars. Per hour, the cost is again $41 million and upwards. And per day, the cost is going up to $1 billion per day. This cost on the war on Iran, that's what it's costing us. And these costs are only going to go up. When we come back, what's the recalibration? Which are the zones? And is there an effort to try and break Iran into multiple pieces? And will we have sectarian violence coming in very, very soon? The Kurds, the Azeris, and of course the Baloch on the other side. And there is a solid Sunni population near Sistan and Balochistan. All of those, will they start getting activated on ground? With Tom Cooper when we come back after a short break. These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. It's sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots more information lined up for you on this side as well. Let's just go across to Ayushman, who's bringing us more breaking developments from the newsroom. Ayushman, over to you.
Right, thank you for that. Hey, we're getting more updates coming in from another theater of conflict which was raging far before the war between the United States, Israel and Iran. What we are learning is that security forces of Afghanistan have launched targeted military strikes on the Pakistani military installations in Dandpatan district of Paktia. So several Pakistani military forces in the Paktia area have been targeted by the Afghanistan forces, is what we are learning. This conflict has been raging along the Durand line even before what is taking place inside Iran and the wider Middle East. So Afghanistan also escalating the military operations against Pakistan along the Durand line. We'll get more updates from my colleague Akanksha to get more details. Akanksha, so this conflict also flaring up. Is Afghanistan taking the opportunity as well as take advantage of the fog of war in the Middle East, which is also roping in Pakistan's military assets at some level, because it seems that the war rhetoric as well as the operations are ramping up in all war zones pretty much?
Absolutely. And if you look at the off-late stance that Pakistan has been taking, whether it is to become the part of Board of Peace in Gaza or even staying calm with regards to the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, there's a lot of anger brewing, not just within the Shia community in Pakistan, even within the Sunni community. So whether or not Afghanistan is taking advantage of the internal, say, political wrestling that we are seeing happen right now, and all the anger that's brewing outside the US consulates in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, we do not know, because say Paktia, as we all know, is very close to the Durand line, and if the Afghans have carried out an attack over there, there is in fact a conscious effort to do so that the Pakistanis actually move and recede beyond, because remember, the Pak forces under Asim Munir have been trying to cross over to the Afghanistan side, and this is the southwestern province as far as Paktia is concerned, around the Durand line. So clearly there's a conscious effort. They are trying to use this say chaotic time to actually intimidate the Pakistani forces so that they recede further beyond the imaginary line, as we know is the Durand line.
Absolutely. And at the same time, the Iranian theater is right next door, Iran, to Afghanistan and Pakistan. And then we've seen the movement of arms, we've seen the instability. Is that entire pitch also raising the tensions along the Durand line?
Absolutely, because look at the messaging, the political messaging that I'm going to now touch upon. The Shia clerics, in fact, have now been calling out to the Shias and the Sunnis to not vote for the PMLN, which is the ruling party under Shahbaz Sharif. Gilgit-Baltistan is currently headed into assembly election. As far as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is concerned, that already is under much chaos because of the BLA and because of the Afghan Taliban activities as well. So we are seeing this regrouping of, say, the Shia community, also of the BLA supporting the Afghan Taliban. The TTP has been extremely active, particularly there's been a spike that's been observed in the last 1 month or so, and the killing of Ayatollah at the moment could only add more fuel to this fire. What will Asim Munir do, given that they are using empty ship containers to provide security to the embassy areas, which are their red zones? Such is the situation and such is the lawlessness in Pakistan, Ayushman, for all to see.
Absolutely. And so from the Durand line to the Middle East, the theatre of war is only expanding. My colleague Haim gets us more updates.
Well, thank you so much for that. Of course, now Iranian targets are being decimated. This is what the Central US CENTCOM is saying. These are the visuals that they've shared. Let me just play these out for you, viewers. As you can see, this is the periscopic thermal imaging that has been shared by the US Central Command. Look at the impact that this particular target has sustained. Them saying that Iranian targets, let me just pause here. As you can see, this is what we're focusing on, paving the way for continued delivery of overwhelming American military firepower. I'm going to scroll back and play this again for you so that we can see the moment of the impact there. You can see it, the debris there, and the blast that this has endured. Remember, earlier this morning, the US Central Command had also shared certain visuals of a drone carrier the size of a World War II carrier ship. Remember, this was one of the 3 drone carriers that Iran has. It continues to target these particular Iranian targets, which are being decimated by the US forces. This is the periscopic visual that we have, and look at the thermal imaging that the US Central Commander shared. I'm going to play this, Ayushman, for our viewers. Look at the kind of impact this has sustained.
Absolutely, and these are the aerial strikes coming in from the different American warheads, primarily even the THAAD missile, as Haim was also pointing out. These are taking out the different missile launchers inside Iran, because this seems to be, Haim, the next phase of the entire conflict, because while you've taken out the military installations, while you've taken out the different nerve centers inside Iran when it comes to command and control, the entire IRGC military infrastructure and command and control has gone underground. There are several underground bases and bunkers where they are now also coordinating these efforts. And these are these mobile units which are being used to launch these drones as well as missiles against several areas in Israel, the US bases in the Middle East, as well as the energy infrastructure across the Arab world. These are all these mobile launch devices which have these small drones with heavy explosive power, which are taking on those military installations as well as the energy infrastructure across the Middle East. This has become a potent tool of the IRGC to exact its revenge, as well as raise the cost of the conflict for both Israel and the United States. And it's the aim of both the US and the Israeli forces is to take out these mobile units. But you might take out like 100 of them in a couple of days. But Iran has the capacity to just mobilize more ways to launch those drones. Remember, you don't need an extensive truck to launch these drones. You just need a mobile vehicle. You can do it at the top of a car as well. You can retrofit one of these drones on top of a car and go to the edge of the border near the Strait of Hormuz and launch that drone at any ship, any naval base, or any other military installation. This is the explosive capacity that Iran currently has, but at the same time, these targeted strikes also expanding across Iran from the United States and Israel, but they are also running out of munitions as well as those advanced weaponry. Iran playing down the advanced nature of its weaponry, and what it's doing is that using these homemade drones, similar to what Hezbollah does in Lebanon, to target this energy infrastructure as well as the military bases across the Middle East. So that seems to be the tactic that Iran is using, this war of attrition that is only expanding in the Middle East, and this is the sight that everyone has to see when it comes to the expanding ambit of this conflict in the Middle East. So that is the capability that Iran currently holds. holds when it comes to targeting these different areas, but the United States and Israel also heading back.
Right, we're also getting some more visuals which are being shared. The Fujairah oil industry zone in the UAE, these are the visuals that we're getting for you right now. You can see that these have increasingly come under target as well. Look at the kind of damage that they've sustained as well. Let me share another image that was shared, also shows the kind of wreckage that we're seeing at Fujairah. So here is the image that we're looking at.
Right, and this is the Fujairah oil field, which has come under multiple attacks from Iran. And despite the fact that military assets have been mobilized around this area, you can see how the drones, these are loitering munitions, they fly under the radar and they're able to cause this level of damage at the oil infrastructure. And this, once again, just the visual of this and the fact that the entire oil field has become an unsafe area, it sends shockwaves across energy markets. And this seems to be one of the crucial tactics of the Iranian regime. General Singh is also with us on the broadcast. So General Singh, you can see the explosive power of the drones which are being employed, the Shahad drones employed by the Iranian regime. Low-cost drones, heavy production, almost 10,000 can be produced in a month, and these are the shockwaves they are causing across the Middle East.
See, basically what is baffling or little surprising is the degree of preparation which Iran seems to have done. It was known from June-July attack onwards that there may be another round. So Iran has used this time to map out all the American assets, their bases. And like people say, Israel has done thorough preparation. It appears that Iran has also done thorough preparation. And it is also delegated authority. It had catered for something like this. After all, the top command structure is gone completely. Yet, there is response, there is resilience. And how's it happening? So obviously there is some amount of redundancy in their command and control, where they are able to communicate, and also delegation which has been done. So all in all, it's worrying for America, because this indicates that war would stretch on, and uncertainty will multiply.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's growing exponentially. The uncertainty of the entire conflict, the stated objectives, and what will be the end game. That is something that is completely uncertain. I want to get my colleague Akanksha on these visuals as well that we are getting from Fujairah. Akanksha, the explosive nature of those drones being launched by Iran, at the same time, it plays into what investigations editor Manoj Gupta was also pointing out, that Khamenei had this contingency plan in place in the event that he was assassinated.
Absolutely. And going by the escalatory nature, the domino effect of this overall conflict, what we can tell our viewers, that they seem to be certainly much better prepared, if not as much as the US and Israel, but more than at least the United States' own Middle Eastern allies. Going by the way they are targeting not just oil refineries, they are targeting civilian localities, whether that's planned or not, even though Iran maintains that they are not planning to target any of the civilians. But more importantly, it's the refineries, it's the US air bases that are being targeted. And even though the US CENTCOM has been firmly maintaining that their B-1 and B-2 bombers, even the B-52 bombers, have been able to eliminate the Iranian missiles and their own capacity to attack. 85% of their drones, they're saying the drone attacks have reduced. 90% of their missile attacks have reduced. But you know, much of that still needs to be backed by evidence, because going by the information that's continuously trickling in, the attacks from Iran are continuing very much in Middle East. We'll have to see why CENTCOM is even able to make that kind of a sweeping claim at the moment.
Absolutely. These are claims also in the fog of war. It's part of the psyops that are played from both sides. But if you go back to those visuals, you can see the explosive powers I've been pointing out when it comes to those Iranian drones. And at the end of the day, the Arab nations, they are not feeling secure. They were supposed to be protected by the United States when it comes to the energy infrastructure, because they are pretty much the gatekeepers of the energy markets of the world. This is not sending a great message to American allies in the Middle East.
Absolutely, and of course, it offers certain clues, as Akanksha was mentioning as well, of the operational capabilities of Iran at this point as well, because for the United States to come out and say that 90% of the attacks also, it's come down 90%, now that's a huge claim to make, especially when we're seeing the kind of devastation that we are in these visuals that are coming out.
Right, absolutely, and this is Fujairah oil base. This has been attacked multiple times by the United States. You also have the other oil bases in Saudi Arabia, as well as Oman and other parts of the UAE as well as the strikes on the carriers, as well as the oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran using the drone strikes as a very potent tool in raising the cost of the war for the United States. This war of attrition only escalating from the Iranian side, while the United States and Israel are running out of their munitions, is what we are learning, because the defense contractors are being roped in to develop new THAAD missiles. But as my colleague Sanjay Suri was pointing out, developing new advanced warfare assets will take 1 or 2 years. So is the entire presidency of Donald Trump now going to be mired in the Iranian conflict? That is the big question that emerges as the cost of war as well as the tensions are only escalating. That's all we have to pack in on the show. We'll continue to track all the developments coming in from the Middle East. For now, quick break. More news and updates on the other side.
Devastation, a direct hit by a missile.
Picture is that the US is not able to defend.
Of a drone of massive, the number of ballistic missiles.
Where is it that Iran is actually placing its resources right now?
Tabriz, Sanandaj, Kermanshah. And this is now what they are doing since yesterday. They are conducting more or less organized.
This is our network phone. We've got some more images here. We've got another image of the US Navy's 5th Fleet Headquarters in Manama Bar.
Over Oman, Saudi Arabia and the Strait to Europe.
Iran now has been completely, in some ways, dominated.
With ballistic missile attack. It means the Kuwaiti air defense was under big strain.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens, sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
Now that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand when it is targeting these air bases, Iran. We'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace.
Yes.
How is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a
this?
mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers, just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and count.
Hello and welcome, and thank you so much for staying with CNN News 18. I'm Priya Atul. With me, joining me here on the studios is my colleague Akanksha Swaroop, and we are constantly tracking every development as far as the West Asian conflict is concerned. Akanksha?
Right. It's day 6 of the conflict, and as we can see, the joint forces, whether it is the United States and Israel, both have declared that the war has entered a new phase. Having said that, let's get started with the top stories this hour.
As oil prices spike sharply, big energy boost for India. United States issues a 30-day waiver allowing India to continue purchasing Russian oil.
US strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Iranian ballistic missile attacks drop 90%, while drone attacks fall by 83%. This is a US CENTCOM claim.
Iran launches fresh strikes on Bahrain and Kuwait, while a state-run oil refinery also has been targeted in Bahrain. A US base has been hit in Kuwait. No reports of casualties so far.
Israel dismantles 6 Iranian missile launchers just minutes before they were intended to be launched towards its own territory. Dramatic visuals have now surfaced.
Also, first visuals that we've managed to access of the Sri Lankan Navy rescuing Iranian sailors who survived the torpedo attack on the Iranian warship. 32 survivors were brought ashore following the attack.
So this is how the war is impacting the energy crisis. India's access to critical energy supplies for now have received a temporary lift. This after the United States actually approved a narrowly defined 30-day waiver. That's going to allow Indian refiners to now purchase Russian oil already stranded at sea, while the government positions this waiver as a pragmatic response to regional energy disruptions. The move, of course, has triggered sharp political debate at home, with opposition leaders even questioning why Washington is even in a position to quote-unquote permit India's purchases, and demands clarity on what leverage the US holds over New Delhi.
Absolutely. The language is something that is being discussed, and there is a sharp criticism that is coming in from opposition, particularly for the Narendra Modi government. Because when the US says we are allowing India to go ahead and buy Russian oil, when the US says we are giving a 30-day waiver, there is a concession that has been granted. There are certain vessels, there are certain casks that are in fact strewn around the Strait of Hormuz, go by it. All of that is being argued here back home in the political circles, where the opposition
administration is seeing red on what exactly is going on and why is the US really determining New Delhi's foreign policy and why that unilateral decision really is not with the United States and
India is
of
also
America and
seeking
India.
US support at the moment. How will this US support help? Because US is also willing to provide maritime insurance. Will this help Indian vessels to receive their own sort of supply of CNG, LPG, all of that? We will keep bringing to you. But for now, Griha, let's break down the visuals for
Absolutely. Let's first take a look at these images that we managed to access. The US Central Command has put out these images where we are looking at these shots from 6th of March where you see these attacks that have been witnessed, and this is talking about how a lot of those infrastructure in Iran has been attacked by the US and Israeli forces. These are Iranian targets being decimated by the US forces, and of course this is paving the way for continued delivery of overwhelming American military power. This, of course, is being released by the CENTCOM. This next set of visuals, Akanksha, of course, this tells a very drastic story.
This is of Fujairah oil industry zone in UAE. And remember, UAE is seeing a fresh scale in terms of an escalation as far as UAE is concerned. In fact, residents have also reported that they have been receiving notifications from the Emirati Interior Ministry to stay safe. But at the moment, what we can tell our viewers is that the refineries and the US bases are being targeted. The next set of visuals, Griha can take us through.
Right, absolutely. And this is from Tehran. And these are various locations that we've marked out for our viewers as we get in at a closer look at the strikes that have happened in Tehran. If we take a look at how these images, these satellite imagery, these infra imagery are in fact telling us a story of the kind of destruction that has happened not just at the IRGC base, but several other places in Tehran. Remember, as far as the Ayatollah Khamenei taking out of the Supreme Leader really is concerned, that was on day one.
All right, we have some more breaking inputs coming in right now. US has issued an urgent advisory for its citizens in Baghdad is what we are being told, because remember, Baghdad also, as far as Iraq is concerned, that's getting sucked into this overall conflict. The US has issued this advisories for its citizens to immediately evacuate Baghdad, and it also reads, let me in fact quote what the US advisory is going on to say, that the US government cares about your safety, will continue to share information. You need to make informed decisions about your security. And this is not the first time that the US has actually issued that advisory. At the moment, let's quickly in fact bring our viewers up to speed with regards to how many Americans are we even looking at and why weren't these evacuations actually ensured on time. Let's quickly go across to Ayushman Jamwal, who will perhaps be breaking this down for us. But at the moment, CENTCOM has actually made some sweeping claims over here. They are saying that they have not only just brought down the drone attacks by 83 to 85%, they've brought down the missile attacks also coming in from Iran by close to 90%. Let's quickly take this forward with Ayushman. Ayushman, what can you tell us about this US advisory issued for Baghdad?
Right. So basically what the US government has said is that the US government cares about your safety and will continue to share information. You need to make the informed decisions about your security. The US government is assessing all options to help Americans leave the Middle East. Imagine that is the statement that's coming in from the United States, Akanksha, and that has been the big criticism that's coming in. Ahead of the Iraq war, the American citizens in the Middle East had weeks to evacuate the entire region. This time they had no warning. Several of them are stuck, and the United States has no option when it comes to taking them out of the war zone. Which is why you're getting this language where the US is saying the US government is assessing all options to help Americans leave the Middle East. US citizens in Iraq are strongly encouraged to depart as soon as they are safely able to do so. So putting the onus on evacuating Iraq on those American citizens.
It's day 6 of the conflict, and such an advisory coming on day 6 is a tad bit too late. It's over to Griha for more details.
In fact, let me take this across to a special guest who's joining me on the broadcast. Tal Orun, who's an advocate, is now with us on the broadcast. Tal, the fact that there's a special advisory that has now come in from the United States, particularly for citizens in Baghdad, and these advisories are trickling in on a regular basis. while on the one hand there is a posture that the US would have the world believe that they are in fact pretty sorted, they are at a position of power when it is about this war, and yet there is an exercising of caution when it is about the US citizens in this war-torn area. However, a formal declaration and using of the terminology war has still not come in from Washington.
Yeah, I think the reason that U.S. citizens are being advised to be wary right now is because they can be a target all across the region, whether it even be in Israel, it could be anywhere. There are Islamists, unfortunately, across the entire region who would take action against U.S. citizens. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons. The second reason is that we know that the IRGC has been extremely degraded in the last couple of days. Israeli officials and American officials are saying up to 85% of their ballistic missile capability has been removed. And we know, like Marco Rubio said, they are about to start a new wave of even more furious attacks, and those could definitely stretch into parts of Iraq, maybe even Baghdad, who knows, depending on where IRGC people who are affiliated are. So that's probably a general advice for U.S. citizens to be careful where they are in the Middle East.
Right, absolutely. We also have former diplomat Sanjay K. Verma joining us right here in the CNN News 18 studio. Ambassador Verma, thank you so much for joining us again back on the broadcast. We continue to discuss what really is coming out of the Middle East, the West Asian conflict only escalating. But we started with talking about the special waiver, so to speak, that has been granted within quotes by the United States of America to India. How does one look at the choice of vocabulary that has been used by the US for India on how the special grant and access that will be given for India to go ahead and purchase Russian oil without any extra cost, now that the world needs it, a global economy needs it, and we are doing it for the greater good?
So what is important for India is to get the oil for our people. We can discuss about the vocabulary and the words that had been used to grant India permission. But at the moment, the most crucial issue is to get the oil to India so that its people cannot suffer.
Right, absolutely. In fact, we continue to keep these discussions going on. Tal, we'd want to also understand from you, the Strait of Hormuz was a problem back then also. We'd always were given to understand that any kind of an aggression, escalation against Iran, this will be the first step by Iran where they would go ahead and in fact block the Strait of Hormuz. But now that is the entire global economy is seeing that pinch, particularly here back home for Indians. That has become a greater set of a problem. What is the US really saying about it? Do you think in practical terms that can really be done with where they go ahead and talk about a certain insurance as opposed to the Lloyds in London? They are going to be taking out of the American taxpayers' money, all of that assurances, so to speak, coming in from the US. How do you read it?
Security in the Strait of Hormuz through Iranian proxies like the Houthis is also going to end up costing the American taxpayer money in the long run, right? If we don't have control over this area, and that doesn't mean control like the U.S. is sitting there and controlling everything that goes in and out, but a general level of control or peace of an understanding, which we've never been able to have with any of the proxies of the Islamic regime or with the Islamic regime itself, it's going to end up costing the American taxpayer and the global economy anyways. So what they're doing right now is a cleanup crew. Basically, they're cleaning up this area. They're getting it ready and prepped for a, hopefully, inshallah, as we say, an age of peace. That's what we're hoping for. And that is going to, unfortunately, in the moment, cost the global economy. It's going to cost India. It's going to cost any company that's been doing deals with Iran and doing business with Iran from gas and oil. It's going to cost them a lot of money. But the hope is that they solve the issue now so we don't have to deal with it 20, 30, 40 years into the future.
All right, stay with us, Tal. We'll continue with that discussion as well. But for now, we are getting in some breaking inputs. A word of caution coming in from Qatar's energy minister, who's warned of an oil price rise up to $150. That too in 2 to 3 weeks if tankers remain unable to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. This is worrisome news, in fact, for the energy sector. We'll quickly take that piece of breaking news with Ayushman Jambal, who continues to stay with us. But as we've been talking about, yes, the governments have been reassuring that they have reserves for 20 to 25 days, but for how long will they be able to control the prices is also one key concern. Like I've been saying, Ayushman, we've been talking about how, yes, there is the worry of having reserves. On the other hand, you have the other worry, which is about controlling the prices. $150 per barrel is worrisome news.
Absolutely. And the strikes coming in from Iran continue to send those shockwaves through the energy markets. We're getting that statement from Qatar's energy minister, who has warned that the war in the Middle East could bring down the economies of the world, portending doom when it comes to the situation with the energy markets, Akanksha. So this is the tension that is rising across the globe, with no clear objectives coming in from the United States and Israel, with the stated objective to eradicate the regime, which is still surviving inside Iran and still coordinating its military efforts. The Arab allies of the United States are raising this alarm that while you have your reserves, while every country has contingency plans, for how long will this war last? Because they could run out.
There's another concern. Remember, when Qatar says that, it means double trouble for India, given that it is our largest LNG supplier as well.
Absolutely. And so this will affect energy markets across the globe, and which is why all nations will have to create those contingency plans. India will have to diversify its supply. China will have to open its routes as well. Russia will become a major power player in the energy market, and that goes against the United States' stated strategic objectives. So while it is trying to divert attention from the Epstein files, while Trump is trying to flex his muscles in the Middle East, in the long term, could US lose that strategic edge?
Let's quickly take this forward with Ambassador Sanjay also, who could weigh in on my question. Ambassador, the question now to also contemplate on is, perhaps we can bring in Tal also in just a bit, is that weren't Israel and the United States expecting such an energy crisis, and what is the contingency plan at the moment?
It's deplorable that the countries who needed to be prepared for such a crisis were not taken into confidence before they struck Iran. So now we are in a soup as the major energy importing country, and we have to find our own ways to make sure that the country doesn't suffer an energy crisis in coming days. We will, of course, look at Russian oil once again. There will be a limit which will be put on the import of Russian oil to India and the energy products from Russia. So let's see how much we are able to get from there, whether that will be sufficient for our energy needs for today and for future. If that is, then probably we'll be able to tide up this situation. Otherwise, we'll be having a bit of crisis at our hand.
But Tal, I'd like to bring you in here now that the Qatari energy minister it is not just a word of caution anymore. He's talking about how this entire war is going to bring the global economy down. And that gets back to the same question. Any kind of arrangement that has been made by the United States of America, is that enough? Because here we do know how much of a reliance is there of energy and oil imports from very many other countries, because Gulf countries in fact make for a larger share of those OPEC nations, and all of that, if it just stops coming in from the Gulf, and that is the warning that has come in from the energy minister, how do you see this really playing out?
First, I have to say congratulations CNN for repeating so much IRGC propaganda on your show. I'm very extremely impressed, between the Epstein files to the end of the world, from gas and oil
We're just putting out the news as it comes, Tal. We are not looking at personal comments against what we are trying to run. We are not here for IDF propaganda. We are not here for Iranian or IRGC propaganda. I have just asked you for your inputs.
If you would let me continue, please.
Yes.
If you would let me continue,
You
please.
started with attacking us. I'm just answering you back. Please
I'm
go
not
ahead.
attacking. I'm just saying, good job. So I think between the war with Russia and Ukraine, yes, we had elevated gas prices. Israel-Palestine, we had elevated prices from so many things because of the Houthis in the Straits of Hormuz. This is not the end of the world. This is not going to cause a global economic collapse. It is not even, I don't even think it's really going to affect oil prices that much. Israel and the United States of America are extremely, extremely powerful, and so are the Arab states in the Gulf right now. We are going
Now
to
the oil prices have gone beyond $84 a barrel.
What are you talking about? We are, in fact,
all
sharply
survive
moving
it.
towards $100 a barrel, and that's a crazy
And we will all
piece of
survive
news
it
that
every
the world
time
is
there is
tracking.
war.
It's just
Every
day
time there is
6,
war
Tal.
anywhere in
It's
the
just
world.
day 6 of the war. How are you talking? How can you even claim that we are surviving this war, given that our own government has
Because
said that
I've
they
been
have
living
reserves
under war
for 20 to
for the last 2
25
years.
days? What happens after the 25 days, given that the US President himself has declared that this war could very well go on beyond 5 weeks? The voices coming in from your country themselves are indicating that they have no timeline in mind.
Prices will stabilize, as I know because I've been living under war for the last 2 years. In Russia, Ukraine, prices stabilized. Inflation reached the prices of where we're at today. Everything will be okay. The biggest deal, this is the part that everybody needs to get into their head. We were heading towards this point either way. There is no negotiation. There's no economic negotiations to be done with the IRGC. This is a group of people who wanted the end of the world through Islamic theology. This had to be done now. It's going to hurt a little bit in the short term, but we will be okay. The world will be okay, and the world will be a better place after this.
All right, we'll continue with that, but for now we're getting in some more breaking inputs coming in. This after we declared that there was a US advisory issued for its American citizens in Baghdad, fresh advisory being issued for the citizens in Saudi. In fact, the US advisory also goes on to say that they have flights operational in Jeddah and in Riyadh as well, as far as Saudi is concerned. I come back to that question. Shouldn't such an advisory have been issued before the US and Israel were embarking on a joint strike?
Absolutely, but they thought that they would completely cripple the Iranian regime in just a couple of days, but the Iranians have persisted and continue to escalate their attacks, targeting those key shipping lanes, which is also disrupting air travel, as well as sending shockwaves through the energy markets. And now Americans across the Middle East, and there's millions of them across the Middle East, they are completely stranded. Even cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which has a massive American population, also facing those disruptions. And at the same time, while America, like the Trump administration, needs to mobilize its resources to get American citizens out, what we are seeing is that they are doubling down on their narrative in the United States. Caroline Leavitt and the entire Trump ecosystem are saying that Americans are safe, we are doing everything we can, but on the ground, American citizens are completely distressed, even in a nation like Saudi Arabia. And at the same time, you see from the Arab nations as well, Akanksha, several of them are even fining people for posting visuals of the rocket attacks as well as the drone strikes in their countries.
Talk about downplaying the overall conflict right now. Clearly, the Trump administration seems rattled by the Iranian response as well, but we're going to take this forward with Griha.
Well, absolutely. Ambassador Verma, I want to bring you in here, considering there is another set of advisory that now we are learning of coming in from the United States of America. This time, we do see how they are rather concerned about their citizens in West Asia, in the Middle East. Earlier, there was an offensive, there was a certain posturing that came in from America. But now, when it is about the human cost of the war, they do look at evacuating their citizens first. Because earlier, when there were certain attacks that were launched by the Iranians on American installation, some even reaching close to residential places in places like Dubai, the version that came in from the United States was that right now you have to sit tight, we cannot really do anything about it. But now there seems to be some kind of a movement there. How do you read the body language of the Americans when it is about this? And these missives are going on. It is Baghdad, it's now Saudi Arabia. How do you see this?
So basically, I will analyze it from two perspectives. One is that they have really felt the need to evacuate their citizens. But secondly, the peer pressure. If you remember, India had already declared that they are ready to take care of their citizens if the situation arises. And therefore, I'm sure that domestically in the US, it would have been discussed that a country like India is able to do that. Why shouldn't the US be? So these pressures do play a role in such planning and contingency. I hope that it doesn't come to that situation, because recently what I have learned is that the Arab countries are getting together and are requesting the US to cease the hostilities so that they are able to be safer.
Okay. Or does it mean boots on the ground? Because we already are reading into how the Kurds are being mobilized as far as the western borders of Iran is concerned. So America possibly is looking at an on-ground offensive, getting in the Kurdish fighters into Iran and other places in West Asia, and that's why possibly it wants its citizens out.
It all depends what is the final objective of the US-Israel joint attack, if the initiative is to degrade the missile launching facilities, degrade the leadership, then I think boots on the ground will be required, but minimal.
Okay.
If it is only the facilitation of their air campaign, then probably they will need again slightly larger number of troops, but it's still not as many as they had in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Right. Tal, want to bring you in here, talking about the Kurd factor, considering the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is highly responsible for getting the Washington to in fact lean on the Kurds once again, but a response, so to speak, at least the official one that's coming in from Kurdistan, is not really in that direction. They have gone on record and they have said that they are not going to be engaged in other superpowers' war. But that is on record. We do not know what is really happening on ground. On ground, we are learning of a different story altogether. We are looking at incursions that are happening from Iraq into Iran. How do you see that development?
The Kurds are a formidable force in the region, especially their different military wings. So I think it would be incredible to see them actually take up arms alongside the United States and Israel to try to bring down the IRGC. The problem is that there are sort of competing factors here. The Kurdish people, the Kurdish militaries, they want something else from the collapse of the IRGC, which would probably be to carve out their own nation or at least autonomous region in Iran so that they could safeguard themselves from ever being oppressed under the Islamists again. The question is, do the Persian people, do the Iranian people, even the Kurdish people inside of Iran want that? That's not an answer I really have at the moment. For what I'm seeing, it's kind of a 50-50, but we do know already that the Kurdish people have begun to assault different IRGC factions in Iran, the Kurdish Iranian groups as well. And I think it'll be amazing if there ends up being an amazing coalition between the USA, Israel, and the Kurdish fighters to bring down this evil regime.
All right, stay with us. Getting in more breaking inputs. In fact, what we are learning is that Azerbaijan has now withdrawn its diplomats from Iran. This after, remember, Azerbaijan also got sucked into the overall conflict over here. What we are being told is that this is, of course, going to also lead to downgrading of diplomatic ties between Azerbaijan and Iran. And such is the clout of Azerbaijan that a NATO ally like Turkey has also reacted. In fact, President Erdogan has sent out a warning for attacking Azerbaijan. And in the latest, what we are being told is that the diplomats have been asked to evacuate Iran.
Absolutely. And we saw those strikes on the Azerbaijan airport coming in from the Iranian drones. Remember the reach of those Iranian drones, which can be launched from the borders of Iran through these mobile vehicles, has even reached Azerbaijan. So Azerbaijan also facing the sting of this entire conflict that is raging beyond the Middle East now, because Azerbaijan also a critical player in the global energy market. It seems Iran's entire tactic is not just the Arab nations, but the entire energy corridor, and to raise the cost of war for the United States, given the fact that it seems the United States doesn't have a clear objective in place and they are bungling several operations, even underestimating the Iranian capabilities to hit back at Israel and the United States. Azerbaijan taking that line as well, removing its diplomats, but at the same time, can Azerbaijan defend itself from further Iranian attacks is also the point of contention, but at the same time, the diplomatic power play is also continuing.
The airport was also targeted in Baku yesterday, and so perhaps it's incumbent now on Azerbaijan to ensure that all of its diplomats located in Iran are evacuated at the earliest, because there's been an escalation in the country as well. It's over to Griha for more details.
Right, absolutely. Ambassador Verma, I want your inputs here, considering there was a very, very dramatic imagery that came in from Azerbaijan where we saw something like a ballistic missile or a drone, allegedly Iranian, that fell on one of the airports there. And that's something that was spoken about. There was a summoning of ambassadors that had happened there. But then a version came in from Iran that it was not their doing. Now, this development where diplomats are being withdrawn by Azerbaijan from Iran, how do you read this? We do know how the Iranian and Azerbaijan equation is not really that good, but this is deteriorating it further.
Generally, what happens when we withdraw diplomats, they are for various reasons, and one of the reasons is, of course, to show dissatisfaction with the steps taken by the host country. But there could also be danger to their lives, due to which the diplomats are being asked to come back. So I will not equate it exactly with the missile attack which we were talking about a little while ago. I would say that it is largely the danger to the lives of the Azerbaijani diplomats in Iran, for which they have been asked to come back to the capital.
All right. Tal, would you like to weigh in on this, considering this was long coming? Azerbaijan, Iran do not share good relation. Azerbaijan is rather pro-Western for Iran, and we've already seen that deterioration really coming in when it is about this. Now that the diplomats have been taken off from Iran, there was a summoning. I was just, discussing this with Ambassador Verma, of the diplomats there after that strike really took place, and now this.
Yeah, from what I spoke to some people on the ground in Azerbaijan recently. I happened to be there during the last war with Iran, during the 12-day war. From what I understood, they struck some very random sites, an island off the coast of Baku that housed some gas facilities and oil facilities to try to hurt Azerbaijan's economy. Not appreciated, obviously, by our friends in Azerbaijan in any capacity, since they are very close allies to Israel as well. I think what it boils down to is you're seeing a regime with its back against the wall, a scared rat, and it is firing rockets at willy-nilly at civilian populations all over the region, and now beyond just our region into places like Turkey and Azerbaijan as well. Just before I came on here, we had a missile barrage, and I happened to film it from my apartment here in Tel Aviv, and I could see there is no strategy here to hit any sort of army personnel or IDF. It's literally aimed over civilian homes. And the strategy from the IRGC to try to win a war by striking civilians all across the region is just not sustainable. Maybe if you would focus on one country, okay, that makes sense. But now you're focusing on Azerbaijan, you're focusing on Turkey, Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi. You're losing any potential friends you had in the region, and you're not really making any grounds.
Stay with us, Tal. More breaking inputs coming in as we speak. This is with regards to India's own concerns over energy supply. In fact, top government sources have informed CNN News 18 that more energy has been sourced from different parts of the world than the one that's just stuck at the Strait of Hormuz. With regards to LPG, sources tell us that maximum prioritizing productions has in fact been indicated. There's going to be no worry for consumer in terms of consumer gas supply. Let's quickly take that forward with Pallavi Ghosh, who brings us those breaking inputs. Pallavi, the government has always been very reassuring, but for how long is the question, the timeline, and the other aspect is, of course, controlling of the prices.
Absolutely, but Akanksha, this is a war-like situation, so no one is going to hazard a definite timeline as to when war is going to be ending. But as of now, the government has been always making the point that about 25 days of crude oil and 20 days of energy products, which of course includes petrol and diesel. So at least we are not very much worried about it. But one thing is very, very clear coming in from the government is that there's more supply of energy which is coming in from other than the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, that's the quote that we are getting by way of our government sources, that there is enough or more energy which is sourced from different parts of the world than from the Strait of Hormuz. So we have nothing really to be worried about in terms of as far as the energy coming in. Most importantly was the concern regarding LPG and LNG. That is where the government is saying that all the energy stations have been instructed maximize their production. And also when they're maximizing the production, that priority will have to be given as far as the prioritizing, and the priority, of course, in this case happens to be the consumers.
All right. Right. Ambassador Verma, would you like to weigh in here? Some sort of a sliver of hope when it is, when we are looking at how much of an energy supply has been impacted because of this blockage. But now this version that's coming in from the government, do you see this as a silver lining?
In fact, yes, it is. And now we should be able to recoup the reserve, upgrade the reserve, and at the same time have a constant supply of energy products and crude into the country from various sources other than the Gulf countries. How stable will it be? How long can we continue with that? That is something to be seen.
All right. Tal, I'd want your views on it. When India says that we are in fact sourcing energy, oil from other parts of the world, and we are not just relying on the Strait of Hormuz. We've been constantly discussing about how 1/5 of the world's oil passes that strait, that choke point that Iran has a hold over. Do you think many other countries like India are going to be following suit, looking at other avenues? Of course, easier said than done, but there is a lot of contingency that these countries fall back on. India is doing the same thing, and while it is doing that, it is also looking at these other avenues of procuring energy and oil from.
Yes, of course. I mean, that's the smartest move every country can make right now. I mean, India is an incredibly powerful, incredibly intelligent country with an amazing population. Diversifying your oil from a terroristic government or regime like the IRGC is literally the smartest thing you could do, especially at their downfall. And it's a beautiful thing that Donald Trump just accomplished some level of normalcy with Venezuela, which will hopefully open up oil and gas for much of the world from there as well. But 100%, I think the smartest thing India can do right now is push far away from the IRGC, the relationship between them and the obviously oil and gas, in hopes that a future regime can come there and then stabilize both prices and safety in the Straits of Hormuz.
But right now, regime change is not something that we're talking about. We're talking about energy supply. But since you are on that part, on that aspect, version that comes in from Israel altogether, even as we look at someone as a next supreme leader in Mustafa Khamenei, there is already a target on his head, is the version that comes in from Israel. While that hostility remains, do you think there's any stabilizing, or countries like India can even look at a possible reduction or a cessation of hostilities when it is about this war that continues to brew?
Of course. I mean, this is a matter of time. Every person who's in the IRGC should have a target on their head from the U.S. and Israel right now. But it's a matter of time between when the Iranian people rise up, when they get the command, hopefully from the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, to actually rise up once again and officially bring on the downfall of the IRGC. I also think that we need to have some trust in the process. We need to have trust in our leaders, like the leaders of the United States and the leaders of Israel, to actually be moving things behind the scenes that we're not seeing, that are not allowed to be talked about. In the same way that the assassination of Ali Khamenei just happened days ago, none of us knew that was going to happen on the opening hours of the war.
And we really don't know if they will be able to completely eliminate the regime as of now, given that the IRGC is protecting the successor as well. But I want to quickly bring the attention back on the energy crisis that's staring the globe at the moment. And Ambassador Verma, you could perhaps weigh in on that. When we talk about this waiver with regards to Russia, many are looking at it as a silver lining, but remember, this is also referring only to those vessels which have already been procured from Russia. But what are the options, given that Venezuela to be resurrected is going to take years, not just a matter of months? You only are left with Russia if Iran is at war.
See, the problem with India at the moment is that if all the Gulf countries are blockaded, which means if the Strait of Hormuz is blockaded, what happens is that it is not only the Iranian oil, it is oil coming from other countries as well, which gets blocked. If that happens, do we have enough sources committed at the moment to get as much oil? I will not be sure. Russia is an incredible source for us to procure oil, but that will also be having its own limitation of its production, of its supply, of the entire supply chain.
Do you believe US will stick to that 30-day waiver or could go beyond?
I think we have great relations with the US, and they should be able to see the reason for India's energy supply security.
All right, many thanks to you, Ambassador, for breaking that down for us. Let's quickly, in fact, bring you ground report. CNN News 18 is the only channel with our own boots on the ground, and that happens to be Tel Aviv. Let's bring you a ground report by Rifat.
अभी हमला रुकने का नाम नहीं ले रहा है, बार बार ईरान की तरफ से हमला किया जा रहा है और रॉकेट्स और मिसाइल्स फेंके जा रहे हैं। अभी आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पे इंटरसेप्ट किया गया है, मिसाइल जो लॉन्च किया गया था उसको यहाँ पे आसमान में इंटरसेप्ट किया गया है, यहाँ पर भी इंटरसेप्ट किया गया है। ये देखिए आप, आसमान में धमाके हो रहे हैं ज़बरदस्त, तो इंटरसेप्शंस हो रही हैं। ये टेल अवीव की आसमान में ये देख सकते हैं आप, एक और धमाका यहाँ पर भी 3 जगह पे इंटरसेप्ट किए गए हैं मिसाइल्स। ये एक जगह आसमान में, ये दूसरी और ये तीसरी जगह पे। तो आप देख सकते हैं एक और जगह पे, 4 जगह पे बैक टू बैक ये जो आप देख रहे हैं यहाँ पे टेल अवीव में इंटरसेप्शंस हो रही हैं। ये देखिए एक के बाद एक इंटरसेप्शंस, धमाके लगातार हो रहे हैं। ये देखिए, ये एक्सक्लूसिव विजुअल्स आप न्यूज़ 18 पे देख सकते हैं। इस वक्त स्ट्रेट टेल अवीव से एक के बाद एक मिसाइल और रॉकेट जो है उसको इंटरसेप्ट किया जा रहा है। ईरान की तरफ से लगातार जोरदार हमले किए जा रहे हैं यहाँ टेल अवीव और बाकी जगहों पे। तो ये आप देख सकते हैं, ये ईरान का एरिया है। और ये देखिए आसमान में किस तरीके से इंटरसेप्ट किया जाता है मिसाइल्स को या रॉकेट्स को जो ईरान की तरफ से हमला किया जाता है। ज़ोरदार हमला हुआ था, ज़ोरदार धमाके इस वक्त हो गए और अब इन मिसाइल्स को इंटरसेप्ट किया गया।
Sir, CIA is in touch with Kurds and they are saying that the Kurds are going to do help in the regime change in Iran. How would you like to react to this?
First of all, please do not demonize our Kurds.
Okay.
Our Kurds are the center to our identity, to the Iranian identity. We are very much proud of our Kurdish people inside Iran. You are talking about separatists who have been nourished by CIA and Mossad. We are born to fight separatism. Iran has a very strong identity. Iran is the oldest living civilization on earth, and we know how to defend our identity. And I'm sure that the first front against those separatists are the Kurds.
Sir, how do you look at Indian government gesture of signing the condolence book? Foreign Secretary came and signed the condolence book, sir.
Iran and India has old civilizational, roots with each other. We are Indo-Persian culture and civilization, and it is very much in the line with this cultural civilizational heritage, and we are attaching great importance to Iran-India relations.
Mr. Nasheed, today is the 6th day of war in West Asia. There is no room for diplomacy left, it looks like that. How do you assess the situation in West Asia, as you have many friends there, many foreign ministers, many heads of state, your friends? How do you assess? Are you in touch with them? What are they telling you?
Well, it's very worrying and very concerning. Of course, especially the Gulf, this GCC countries and Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and they've been dragged into a conflict which is not of their choosing. We have also seen in recent days that the war is spilling over to the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Now that is very concerning. India, as the net security provider, I'm sure would rise to the occasion. And it is also comforting to see that Sri Lanka is assisting ships in distress in the area. But we hope that we are not, the Indian Ocean is not dragged into this conflict.
Yeah. I was coming to this question because this is perhaps for the first time something like this is happening in India's backyard. India, Maldives, Sri Lanka play a major role to maintain peace and stability in the Indian Ocean. How can these three countries be cooperating within each other?
Well, yes, one of the Iranian, the second ship is, I understand, docked in Trincomalee now, and I hope that the ship has safety and security there. India, Maldives and Sri Lanka, we already have the Colombo Conclave and we meet every year. Countries are being dragged into war that is of not their own choosing, and it really is not of their own concern. It's an Israel war, and Israel is dragging our countries into these wars. We don't want to see this happen. We hope that both Israel and the United States understands this and leave us alone.
Here goes the siren again. A ballistic missile detected on its way here. Probably a good time to step into a shelter.
अभी हमला रुकने का नाम नहीं ले रहा है, बार बार ईरान की तरफ से हमला किया जा रहा है। ये एक्सक्लूसिव विजुअल्स आप न्यूज़ 18 पे देख सकते हैं। इस वक्त
we already went past one place where apparently there had just been an airstrike. There was thick black smoke billowing over one place, so it seemed like a fairly fresh airstrike. Also some destroyed buildings.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. It's sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
No, that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Oh, it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand when it is targeting these air bases, Iran. We'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US
disruption, guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read this?
It's a mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers, just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and counting, 600,000 and counting. This is in 6 days, 2 hours, 56 minutes and 39.40 seconds. Per second, the cost is only going up to $11,574 per hour. The cost is again $41 million and upwards, and per day the cost is going up to $1 billion per day. This cost on the war on Iran, that's what it's costing us, and these costs are only going to go up. When we come back, what's the recalibration? Which are the zones? And is there an effort to try and break Iran into multiple pieces? And will we have sectarian violence coming in very, very soon? The Kurds, the Azeris, and of course the Baloch on the other side. And there is a solid Sunni population near Sistan and Balochistan. All of those, will they start getting activated on ground? With Tom Cooper when we come back after a short break. These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same, Shahid.
Welcome back. We are on with our continuous coverage as far as the fury in the Gulf is concerned, and there is a particular emphasis on the Strait of Hormuz for obvious reasons, as this is a vital choke point carrying 1/5 of the world's crude oil. It has been effectively disrupted amid escalating conflict between the United States, Israel and Iran, severely impacting global trade and energy flows. The disruption has left scores of merchant vessels, including at least 37 Indian flag ships with approximately 23,000 seafarers stranded in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, with Indian authorities maintaining constant contact and monitoring safety. Washington has signaled it may deploy the US Navy to escort the tankers to keep the vital oil choke point open, even as shipping almost has been halted amid the regional conflict. Tehran now insists that it has not legally closed the strait and remains committed to freedom of navigation, rejecting any kind of claims of a full shutdown as baseless and also absurd.
यदि हम इस स्ट्रेट ऑफ हार्मुज या पूरे पर्शियन गल्फ क्षेत्र को देखें तो यह विश्व की एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी का एक अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र है। जब इस क्षेत्र में डिस्टर्बेंस या डिसरप्शन होता है तो उसका सीधा असर ऑयल और गैस की सप्लाई पर पड़ता है। इन अनसर्टेनिटीज का सीधा प्रभाव इकोनॉमी और ग्लोबल ट्रेड पर पड़ता है। साथियों, वर्तमान में सिचुएशन काफी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड हो गई है। एवं ऐसा प्रतीत होता है कि आगे जाकर ये और डायनेमिक ही होती जाएगी। और आज जिस तरह अलग अलग देश लैंड पर, एयर में, सी में और अब तो स्पेस तक में एक दूसरे को टक्कर ले रहे हैं, वह वास्तव में यह हम सभी के लिए चिंता का विषय है। यह एक एबनॉर्मल सिचुएशन है, मैं ऐसा मानता हूं। What I consider as more worrying is the fact that this abnormality is becoming the new normal.
All right, big news coming in. This is in fact a statement coming in from the International Energy Agency chief. He's raised a possibility. Is it time for the world to go back to Russian gas? This when the entire globe, remember, is staring at an oil and energy crisis. This with the Strait of Hormuz also being locked down. We do not know what kind of a timeline you're looking at, given that neither the United States nor Israel have been able to really pinpoint in terms of for how long this conflict is going to last. What is this in terms of an indication? International Energy Agency chief making that statement.
Absolutely, and imagine the power play and the advantage this gives Vladimir Putin as he continues that offensive in Ukraine. Now he has the energy flex against not just Europe but the entire world. We also saw, Akanksha, that statement which came in from Vladimir Putin that he could turn off the gas pipelines to Europe, threatening the European nations. As it seems, the energy power plays are shifting in his favor. And given the fact that the energy infrastructure in the Middle East is under strike from those Iranian drones, the IEA chief, the International Energy Agency chief, has said the crisis in the Middle East questions in some quarters about whether to go back to Russian gas. What does this do to America's strategic calculus? Has Trump miscalculated heavily?
Absolutely. The big question is that the U.S. administration, particularly the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, has in fact been tom-tomming off late about it is the U.S. that the world will now be looking towards in terms of meeting their own energy. But let's quickly take that forward with our guests and Griha as well.
Right, Akanksha, thank you so much for that. In fact, Ambassador Verma, would want your inputs on this, and we've been discussing this. The obvious next step, and even the US, even at the pretext of granting India that favor for global energy's sake, has granted that access for 30 days, and that too has been very loosely defined, that you can go ahead and procure Russian oil. But that doesn't mean that they are in fact relaxing any of those sanctions against Russia.
But now with the IEA chief really saying it, that this is the obvious next step. The choke point has been blocked. Iran is saying we haven't done it. US, for whatever it is going ahead and doing, cannot really go ahead and probably ensure each and every stranded vessel to get out of the strait. So Russian oil is the obvious next step.
Griha, this situation is this, that the total supply of crude has gotten reduced. And if that has gotten reduced, it will have implications for the economy, it will have the implication for the supply chain, it will have the implication for normal people at their households. So therefore, unless the supply of crude has been increased, people will suffer. Now, Russia adds to that dimension. And if I remember, last quarter, India was importing close to about 1.5 million barrels per day of the Russian crude. That has to be restored once again and probably ramped up because of the loss of the oil from the Gulf.
Right. All right. Many thanks to you, Ambassador, for breaking that down for us. And many thanks to Tal also for joining in on this broadcast. We will keep coming back to you, our viewers, with all the latest inputs coming in on the West Asia crisis. For now, that's all from my end and Griha's end as well. Thank you so much for watching.
Devastation, a direct hit by a missile.
Picture is that the US is not able to defend.
Of a drone, a massive, the number of ballistic missiles.
Where is it that Iran is actually placing its resources right now?
Tabriz, Sanandaj, Kermanshah. And this is now what they are doing since yesterday. They are conducting more or less organized.
This is our network phone. We've got some more images here. We've got another image of the US Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Manama Bar.
Over Oman, Saudi Arabia and the Strait to Europe.
Iran now has been completely, in some ways, dominated.
With ballistic missile attack. It means the Kuwaiti air defense was under big strain.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens, air sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US air base
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
Now that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand when it is targeting these air bases, Iran. We'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a
this?
mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers, just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and counting, 600,000 and counting. This is in 6 days, 2 hours, 56 minutes and 39.40 seconds. Per second, the cost is only going up to $11,574 per hour. The cost is again $41 million and upwards, and per day the cost is going up to $1 billion per day. This cost on the war on Iran, that's what it's costing us, and these costs are only going to go up. When we come back, what's the recalibration, which are the zones, and is there an effort?
Hello and welcome, and thank you so much for staying with CNN News 18. The West Asian conflict has exploded. It has nearly reached India's backyard, and we are tracking every development there is to it. Let's begin with the headlines. The US has issued advisory for citizens in Baghdad as Americans are trapped. The US government says it is assessing all options to help them leave the Middle East. Qatar's energy minister warns oil price could rise up to $150 per barrel in 2 to 3 weeks if tankers remain unable to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. He's also said this will bring down the economies of the world. As oil prices spike sharply, big energy boost for India. United States issues a 30-day waiver allowing India to continue purchasing Russian oil. Azerbaijan withdraws its diplomats from Iran after drone strikes on its airport in Baku. US strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Also, Iranian ballistic missile attacks dropped 90%, while drone attacks have fallen down by 83%. Iran launches fresh strikes on Bahrain and Kuwait, while a state-run oil refinery also has been targeted in Bahrain. A US base has been hit in Kuwait. No reports, thankfully, of casualties so far. Israel dismantles 6 Iranian missile launchers just minutes before they were intended to be launched towards its territory. Dramatic visuals that we've managed to access have surfaced. Let's now begin, as India has ordered all the refiners to maximize LPG output and supply it only to Indian oil, HPCL and BPCL, restricting the use of propane and butane for petrochemicals to safeguard domestic supply amid the gas squeeze that has been linked to the Iranian conflict. Separately, we're also learning that India's energy position has received a temporary relief, and all of this after Washington has granted a 30-day waiver allowing New Delhi to purchase Russian oil already stranded at sea. This is a move that Washington calls a limited stopgap arrangement. The decision has, however, triggered political backlash, debate back home with attacks against the Prime Minister, with opposition now questioning United States' permission, while the government frames both the steps as necessary to maintain energy stability and also during this entire regional turmoil on how much of an importance that needs to be given to something like this. Let me in fact take this across to my colleague Rahul Shiv Shankar. He is going to be taking the broadcast forward as we continue to discuss on what are the next steps available for India and how does one read this missive, particularly coming in from the Indian government, Rahul, that is seeing this development as a silver lining.
Yes, it is indeed. In fact, Indian refiners, just looking through some of the inputs that are coming in, Indian refiners are buying prompt Russian oil as Iran war hits supply. So obviously this is going to feed in to the anxieties that we've been having and perhaps alleviate some of them over whether we'll be able to sort of actually funnel oil to our furnaces in a sense of speaking, because as you know, this situation with the Hormuz Strait completely locked down was complicating situations for us. There was already this sort of unstated, I can only say unstated because it's never been declared.
Yes.
That we weren't supposed to purchase Russian oil, while a lot of the oil that we bring in, about 15%, wasn't coming through the Gulf, so there was going to be a problem, and the government had already said that we have stocks of 25 days each of both oil and ONGC, so and LPG, so basically we had stocks of 50 days, but if you really look at it, it's only 25 days, so you had a month. And this certainly, this U-turn by Trump coming as it is going to sort of help us now pick up the excess Russian oil that was already available in the market, because that's really what some of the top voices from the American administration are saying.
Right. Rahul, do you think it is Trump being drawn against the wall, considering, and he would not have us believe that because there is a certain bravado that he'd still project as far as America is concerned. But first, saying no buying Russian oil, then saying that we are going in for a regime change, then really saying that, okay, fine, there is some issue with the global energy and the security. We need to give that leverage to India and a 30-day waiver, saying that we are allowing you to go ahead and buy this oil. The choice of vocabulary is a question that even the opposition is
You're
asking.
absolutely raising, you know, they're right to raise this, but independently of the opposition, the wording is so patronizing, isn't it, that we're allowing, as if they ever had a veto. It's not as if, and you know, we're going to show you some numbers, viewers, it's not as if the Indian government had stopped purchasing Russian oil. I think Russian oil from a top line of about 30-35% had come down to about 22%. Yes, we were sourcing oil from other markets, but that was determined purely by prices. That's what we had been given to believe. And fundamentally, it was also true that those discounts that the Russians were giving us had begun to evaporate. So it made no logical sense. But what I actually have a problem with is a country like America trying to dictate India's energy policy. And that is a violation of sovereignty. Now, you see what has been happening. You first set these terms, trade sort of terms for India, which are struck down by the Supreme Court. Then you go out there and you sink a ship, a frigate.
Yeah.
People say unarmed frigate, that had come for naval exercises that were hosted by India, and within, I won't say India's territorial waters or even the extended economic zone, but certainly in India's sphere of influence, perhaps not even taking the Indian government or the Navy or any other quarter that looks after external security into confidence, and you do this and you quietly leave the scene without even attending to those by law that you have to attend to, the sailors who have obviously now were in the water.
Yes.
And then you go ahead and you come out and you say, oh well, now we've decided that we are allowing India to buy 30 days worth of Russian oil, but not from Russia, all the excess oil that was lying around so that Indian refiners can refine them and so on and so forth. Clearly, this reeks of a certain patronizing attitude. Now, it also tells you that the block on the Strait of Hormuz is beginning to play on Trump's mind. Why is that so? Because we're already seeing reports coming in that Gulf countries that are harried by drone attacks from Iran are beginning to complain to the United States that you weren't prepared, you didn't envisage this, you didn't game theory this in the background. We are now paying for a war that you have initiated for your own self-interest, whatever they might be, because even those are poorly defined. And then you have India, which is a major partner, is a massive influence in the Indian Ocean region, also has huge leverage with Iran. Remember, today the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran is sitting at the Raisina dialogues and having a conversation with India's Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar. So we can talk to Tel Aviv, we can talk to DC, we can talk to Tehran, we can talk to all the Gulf states. If you then make the costs very heavy for India, India might walk away. We might pick a side tomorrow. Instead of being neutral, we might say that we actually condemn this war against Iran. And then what happens? Because the entire moral calculus begins to shift. It may not lead to a dramatic change in the security situation, but the legitimacy that Trump wants for this war erodes, because one of the world's biggest democracies says thumbs down. Right now, who's supporting Iran? It's a couple of authoritarian nations. And even, of course, the EU by and large. There might be slight differences about the minutiae, but by and large they're supporting this campaign. If you begin to have a country like India fraying and moving away, that's a loss of legitimacy for a campaign.
Right, absolutely. And Rahul, while I was asking about the kind of exhaustion that's coming in from the United States of America, and we'd come into the studios with that because we are constantly also going to be putting out those breaking pieces of information that we have for our viewers. First, America says that we are going to be escorting these ships out of the choke point.
Yes.
Then, and something that they have done only during the Iran-Iraq war. And that's something that they want to exercise now. Again, practically how much of that is possible is the larger question. Then they say we are going to be ensuring the vessels, because the Lloyds of London is not going to do that anymore now that it's entered this conflict zone. But that too, where is that money coming from? That insurance money is supposed to go to poorer countries, which US is now wanting to extract. All of this coming from the taxpayers.
There's breaking news coming in that Maersk has suspended 2 ship links from the Middle East. Poland strongly condemns Iranian attacks targeting the Gulf countries. So right now what we're seeing is that the Gulf countries are feeling the heat. The European Union is standing behind the Gulf countries very firmly in the US-Israeli hemisphere, but you're also beginning to see complaints coming from the Gulf countries, and you're beginning to see now a little bit of dissonance in the European ranks. If this coalition of the willing, so to speak, begins to fray, begins to break down, there's a problem for America. So America is taking this preemptive action. America has decided that, look, fundamentally we're going to give India a waiver of 30 days, keep them happy, mollify some of the Gulf countries that are feeling the pain, augment our resources by getting now missiles from Ukraine. Can you imagine the irony of ironies? You're asking Ukraine to send you anti-drone technology or drones that counter the Shahid drones. And America looks as if it doesn't actually have a plan. It doesn't have an end game. It also has risked perhaps security and stability of the Gulf to pursue this war. And it is becoming a problem. But you know, we're going to continue to bring you updates. Let me also bring in one of our esteemed guests, Mr. Sanjay Verma, who is a former ambassador to a very important country where, of course, till very recently we had, and I'll just come back to you for more updates. But hello, sir. How are you? Good to see you. Lovely to have you in our studio.
Thank you.
Give us a quick view of why Trump has decided to do what he has decided. 30 days waiver for India came out of nowhere. Obviously, the way it was worded was very patronizing, but let's leave that aside and the politics aside. Why do you think Trump suddenly is shaken up by this and said, okay, 30 days waiver for India?
See, basically the supply is dwindling. And if you look at the Strait of Hormuz, it carries close to about 1/5 of total oil requirement. That 1/5 is lost. So which means there will be more price pressure.
So come with me, sir. Let's go up to that wall, that map, and let's talk a little bit about this entire geography that we are talking about. What exactly is going on? And we're going to also try and ask our desk in the background as well as our director to pull out on that wall, on the big wall there, a map of the Strait of Hormuz showing traffic, because that will be quite instrumental. Because Mr. Verma is saying that the oil is drying up. The supply of oil is drying up. Why? Because this is the place where there is a choke, isn't it, sir? That's really what is happening.
Absolutely. It is a choke point.
Yeah.
And then one side you have a shallow passage, another side you have a more deeper passage. So whenever any ship goes, it will go by the shallow passage. And when it is loaded, it will come by the deeper passage.
Right.
So therefore that is being stopped. And it is basically fear psychosis. So once the shipping lines, they understand that there could be some damage caused to their ship, they will just stop plying.
Right.
And that fear psychosis is taking place at the moment. So you have close to about 150 ships, tankers and other ships located in this region.
And the other big problem is that, as Tom Cooper has been telling us all through, the strikes on Iran are basically limited to this area. And this is the problem, because if you're not going deeper in, we're being told suddenly that in Mashhad, which is really on the border of Turkmenistan and here closer to Afghanistan, this area, Mashhad, which is where the funeral of the Ayatollah was expected to take place, and it's been postponed because sirens have gone off, because again the Israelis and the US think that we need to pressure Iran in this particular area. This is Fardoz, which is of course where one of the nuclear enrichment facilities was. This is Isfahan. This area there is some amount of domination over. Here, unfortunately, where there are a large number of IRGC points, this area, which overlooks the Strait of Hormuz, has been targeted, but not in a way that degrades the capacities of the IRGC, not enough that they can stop these drone attacks that are coming through. So you've had drone attacks in Bahrain, you've had drone attacks here in Qatar, you've had drone attacks in Dubai. In fact, the Bahrain one was quite big because their main oil company was taken out of commission.
See, what's happening is that if you look at the map, then these are the areas which are closer to from where they can launch the strike.
Yes.
Here it is more difficult.
Yeah.
And therefore, any army would position themselves here.
Further, this is because of the mountain range.
This is the mountain range.
Yeah.
Further, what we are we should also know that if there are sea mines put in here,
right,
which are there with IRGC, then what happens in the next months? So there is a leverage available.
Very good point that you make. There's leverage available, and also, and let's just come here because this is a very, very instructive map. This tells you everything that you need to know about the Iranian strategy. Now, they might publicly say that we are not blocking the Strait of Hormuz. That's what they're publicly saying. But then what is happening? On the 28th of February, you're seeing a lot of traffic. These are lots of ships. Some of them are heavier cargo ships, some of them are tankers, and they're going up and down. Some of them are cruise liners, some of them are normal fishing vessels. They're all going up and down, all through. Then as the days proceed, let's go to the next date, you begin to see on the 1st, when hostilities erupt, you begin to see a thinning out. You're seeing that traffic, this busy Strait of Hormuz beginning to sort of empty out. Let's go to the next day. It becomes more apparent as the days wear on. And this is when Iran starts striking back into the Gulf countries. And you see this begins to sort of peter out. If you go again to the next date, yeah, let's go to the 3rd of March. How slow this traffic has become. It's basically barely happening. And you're beginning to see a lot of clustering, a lot of ships in harbor. Look at this here. Lots of ship here in harbor, not moving. And this is creating a big problem because no goods are going out, none can come in. A lot of these, as you can see, these ships coming in from India, from other parts of the world, bringing material for these city-states are all locked down here. No one is moving. In fact, sir, 23,000 Indian seafarers are locked in this area. They have been attacked also.
Absolutely.
3 have died in some of these attacks. Precarious.
So it's a war situation.
It's a war situation.
And in a war situation, it's very difficult to safeguard the lives and the properties, particularly in this kind of a war. So therefore, it is better that they stage somewhere down here rather than going into the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, and then viewers, all of this cleans out, and all these, this is what's really hurting the Gulf. These are oil tankers that would have moved from here, transferred their oil to bigger vessels so that they could be transported all across the world. These are all stuck. You can see the number of boats here stuck. They're all lost here. It's almost as if, there's some sort of Brownian motion going on. And they're all stuck. They can't go. This is emptied out, and this is creating huge leverage for Iran. Iran says, look, we're not doing anything. Just the fear of an attack is keeping all these insurers and the shipping vessels and the big shipping companies out of the game. And that's really what is adding to the tumult. And I've got some big breaking news coming in because there are aftermath of Israeli strikes on some locations. And you can see them, viewers, in Sidon, Lebanon. The Israelis are striking because, guess what? The proxies of Iran, sir, are now getting into the game. So Hezbollah has said that we are going to, and let's just come this way so we can all still see those visuals. The Hezbollah has come out and said very clearly that we are not stepping back. We are going to continue to attack Israeli positions, and there is a war by proxy. So there's a widening of the theater and perhaps even a deepening of the theater, Mr. Verma.
Absolutely. So what's, in my view, happening is that Israelis will be harassed. Hezbollah is a fighting group, but very difficult for it to sustain Israeli attacks. So therefore, these rockets which are going there are basically harassment for the Israeli army and air force. Once they are engaged on that front, for them to come back down south for Iran becomes that much more difficult.
So these are dramatic pictures. Lebanon looks as if it's going to be wasted. Let's go across to Sanjay Suri, who joins us for more on this. Now, Sanjay is one of the only Indian journalists who is in Tel Aviv. He is witnessing this catastrophic mayhem that has been unleashed across the Gulf. Sanjay, what can you tell us about the latest situation? We've been seeing attacks now on Tel Aviv. We are seeing the use of cluster munitions by the Iranians. What really is the situation on the ground? And is there a sense now in Israel that they are perhaps going to have to prepare for a longer campaign here?
The fact is that there have been a number of attacks now on Israel, and we've had attacks here on Tel Aviv a little earlier today. And these were ballistic missiles that were launched from Iran. They were successfully intercepted, as they were in the previous salvo a couple of days back. But the fact is that it establishes that Iran has capacity to launch these ballistic missiles. We've had a number of claims from both Israel and the US that a great deal of that capacity has been degraded. Certainly the number of missiles being launched has come down. But again, we are not certain whether that is because Iran is holding on to its reserves, or whether the mass or the majority of its missiles have been decimated and destroyed. But within Israel, really, this is not a fear. People are quite determined to see this through. In fact, people are supporting the war on both fronts, north with Lebanon and then across to Iran. And with Lebanon, there's a clear determination that they will try and take out Hezbollah and its capacity to hurt Israel. But that's not going to be easy. All it takes is a few chaps with a few drones, even assembled drones, and there can be damage caused. True. So the ideal position for Israel is...
Just hold your thoughts. Viewers, what you're going to see now on your screens, and I know that you're going to see me too. Let's just go back to those pictures, those windows. I want to show those windows back again. I wanted to show pictures that are coming out, viewers, of Karachi, where, in fact, there you can see those pictures. on your screens. That's Karachi. And what are we looking at? We are looking at massive cargo containers that have been put up on a road blocking access to US consulates. US consulates are shutting in parts of the Gulf because there is a palpable sense now of siege, of Iranian capacities, a fear of Iranian capacities causing damage to US infrastructure. And I'm going to show you some examples of that in just a few moments. Iran's Islamic Republic Army has announced that the suicide drones of the ground force targeted US bases in Kuwait. And I'm going to show you some of those instances on our wall at the back, an X-ray really of where Iran has been striking in the Gulf, specifically in countries where there are US bases. And Iran has come out and said, and this is one of them, this oil tanker in Oman has been hit by Iran. But I just want to show some of those satellite pictures, Director Saab, that we have, which can give you a sense. This is an explosion at Iran's Ahvaz oil pipeline, but that's on that side of the fence. We're going to show you what has first been happening in Tehran, but I also want to see the other side. So this is Tehran, but I want to see what Iran has been doing in the Gulf. But here you can see, viewers, some of these sites that have been attacked, but here are the bases. So you have the Muawak Salti Air Base in Jordan, completely reduced to rubble here. And this was an area which was thought to be an important listening post and a US base. That's been reduced to rubble. This was first denied by US authorities and CENTCOM. They said nothing like this had happened. The Chinese have released satellite images that show, on the contrary, that there was damage taken to this facility. Let's have a look at the other one. That's Dahal, Qatar. This is another base, viewers, that has been hit. And here again, you can make out that there has been destruction again to facilities where the US has bases. So that's another confirmation coming out. Now, this is the Thad battery near Al Sadr, UAE. It's very, very important because the Thads are a missile system, interceptor missile system. So whenever the drones from Iran come across into the Gulf, these activate first. These Thad anti-drone or interceptor missiles come into action, and they have been actually brought from the United States and placed here. And you can see some of their batteries, the before and the after picture decimated there. And you can see the big area that has been targeted. This is the Al Dhafra US base in the UAE. Again, very, very, very badly off. You can make out from here this entire area completely reduced to rubble, smoked out. You can see the black mark that is hit actually the ground, which suggests that this particular base has been struck. Again, let's focus on that once. Al Dhafra US base in UAE, one of their biggest bases in UAE. So the UAE and other countries who are allied with the United States are very upset. They are saying that, look, you brought this war to us, a war without end. Let me also go back to Sanjay Suri on this issue. We're reading reports, Sanjay, that are coming in now from the Gulf, which are being filed by top agencies, credible news organizations, including the AFP, that suggest that the Gulf countries are beginning to ask questions of the Trump administration. Did you have a war plan? Did you have in mind an end game? Did you envisage the Iranian response would be so widespread and perhaps at some level so well thought out?
Well, the answers to those questions, Rahul, are as many no's as the questions that you have asked. Clearly, there was no end game, end plan in sight. The broad end plan for Trump has been to somehow come out of all this looking great. That's not likely to happen at all. For a start now, the latest from Trump is really an own goal, to the extent that it will be an act of harakiri, political harakiri, that he will have a say in who will be the leader of Iran. There are protesters who were angry with the regime and are angry with the regime. But do they, for that reason, want Trump to nominate their president? Unlikely. It's very likely that Trump is going to lose the support of the very people who came out to protest against this regime. Are these people going to embrace Israel? Again, unlikely. So Trump is really losing it in Iran.
We're just getting information that Israel announces that the next phase in Middle East war is being launched. Israel's military chief says that the joint US-Israeli campaign against Iran is entering its next phase with operations aimed at further dismantling the Islamic Republic's military capabilities. We have additional surprises ahead. Here it is, and we can actually pull this up. Let me try to get this up on the wall there so everyone can actually have a look at this input that has come in. There you have AFP news agency. There is a soundbite from the chief of the US, of the Israeli campaign, talking about dismantling the Islamic Republic's military capabilities. We have additional surprises ahead, which I do not intend to disclose. Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir said in a televised statement which has just come out. So a quick one from you, Sanjay, on this.
Well, there will be surprises on the detail and the tactical moves, but there's no surprise that we are talking about attacks from the air. That will be stepped up. Perhaps stronger munitions will be used. Perhaps there will be greater bombardment and arising from better intelligence or even better intelligence. And they will be able to take out a lot more targets than they have, take them out faster. But we are still speaking of an aerial campaign, and we are still seeing that there inevitably are limits to that.
Okay, what we're seeing, viewers, is an IRGC video. Let's have a look at this video. It's an IRGC video, and the IRGC has come out and issued a statement saying that the 22nd wave of Operation True Promise 4 began with a barrage of Khorram Shahar 4 Khyber and Fatah missiles targeting the heart of the Israeli occupied territories. So more missiles on their way apparently, Sanjay. So you might be hearing very soon some evidence of perhaps, I don't know, sirens and incoming ballistic missile warnings. Can you confirm if these strikes are continuing relentlessly, or whether you are beginning to see some amount of dissipation of the regularity and the frequency of those strikes?
Well, we did see a dissipation and a reduction over recent days. But then 2 days back, there was a ballistic strike attempted, and that was intercepted. Again, this morning, we've had a number of ballistic missiles launched. They were intercepted. And in fact, this was happening when we were having a conversation a little earlier today between me and your studio. So this is something that's continuing. Now there is warning of more. And all these missiles are being launched after this new warning from the IRGC that they are now going to hit Israel hard. And the Khorram Shahar 4 is a very, very strong missile. It has a 2,000-kilometer range. It carries about a 2-ton warhead. So if there's a barrage of those coming, certainly Israel would want to intercept those, and all of us here in Israel would certainly like to see them intercepted.
Well, I'm going to paraphrase you because a barrage of inputs are coming through. Viewers, the Iran's Islamic Republic Army has announced that the suicide drones, and they've called them suicide drones, of the ground forces have also targeted US bases in Kuwait. What's happening?
Rahul, this is also apart from a military war that we are seeing a war of narratives also play out, because remember just hours ago we had the CENTCOM come out with information that the drones barrage coming from Iran has reduced by over 80%, the missiles have reduced by 90%, and now you have the IRGC releasing footage of the Khorram Shahar 4, the Khyber and Fatah missiles targeting the heart of Israeli occupied territories. That only goes on to counter the narrative that was coming in from CENTCOM. If you look at this is Khorram Shah itself. We were speaking to Tom also. He describes it as one missile, which is a cluster of other bombs as well. You're talking about a drone strike taking place again. That again is countering the narrative that is coming in from Israel and CENTCOM. If Iran is going on to indicate that they've released more drones towards Israeli occupied territory, which only goes on to say that the IRGC is very well equipped. They're also backing it with evidence when they are releasing footage. Both sides, in fact, have started releasing evidence. It would be interesting to see how they amp up the attack on the ensuing 7th night of the conflict.
Let me also tell you, the IEA chief is saying, and it's very interesting, crisis in Middle East has led to questions in some quarters about whether to go back to Russian gas. That's very interesting, isn't it?
Also unexpected lines. Remember, when the International Energy Agency chief makes that comment, that the indications coming in are raising questions if it is time to go back to Russian energy, is only an indication that the world is not prepared right now to deal with this crisis, and to back Trump on his stance.
You see, the reason why, viewers, and I'm going to bring Kangsha in on this, one of the reasons why there has been so much pressure on countries that were doing oil business with Russia was to ensure that the Russians didn't make money to fund and finance what the Americans say is Putin's war on Ukraine. Now, if that consensus is breaking because there's desperation, and didn't the Russian president make a sort of, didn't the Russian president make this offhand remark yesterday, Akanksha, that what happens if I stop supplying gas and fuel to Europe? Didn't he say that?
And perhaps he's also exercising his leverage now. I think US has no choice with the IEA chief now coming in on this entire crisis. It's perhaps a reminder to the US president also that you have to choose between the better evils. Right now it is Iran and not Russia. Let's not forget that Venezuela is going to take years, not months, to resurrect.
Right. I mean, the capacity for Venezuela to step in and fill the breach, so to speak, is not there. It's going to take years for that capacity to build up. But let me also tell you, viewers, it's not as if there is no oil. There is plenty of oil. It's in the ground, it's in the Gulf, it's in the ships. They're all loaded, they're ready, but they can't exit the port. Nonetheless, I just want to cut across because I'm being told by my director that there is a soundbite of the chief of the Israeli army that we need to play out because that's quite instructive. There is a sense now of a desperation in the face of this survival instinct which has caught everyone off guard on the Iranian side. They didn't expect this war to drag on for 7 days. Initially, Trump had suggested to some of his own advisors and the opposition in America that it could be just a 4 or 5 day war. Now they've increased it to 4 weeks. If it goes into 4 weeks, viewers, it is going to be catastrophic, particularly if Hormuz remains blocked. So let's listen in to the Israeli army chief.
לאחר השלמת שלב מהלומת הפתיחה המפתיעה, בו יצרנו עליונות האווירית ודיכאנו את מערך הטילים הבליסטיים, כעת אנו עוברים לשלב הבא במערכה, בו נגביר את הפגיעה ביסודות המשטר וביכולותיו הצבאיות. בידינו מהלכים מפתיעים נוספים שאין בכוונתי לחשוף. נרדוף את אויבינו, את כולם, ונשיגם. לאחר השלמת שלב מהלומת 2,500 תקיפות, והטילו יותר לאחר השלמת שלב מהלומת הפתיחה המפתיעה, בו יצרנו עליונות האווירית, ודיכאנו את מערך הטילים הבליסטיים, כעת אנו עוברים לשלב הבא במערכה, בו נגביר את הפגיעה ביסודות המשטר וביכולותיו הצבאיות. בידינו מהלכים מפתיעים נוספים.
Well, there are more footage, viewers, being released by the Iranians now of what they claim are strikes on Tel Aviv. So let's have a look because we were speaking to Sanjay just a few moments back, the only Indian journalist who is still in Tel Aviv reporting this story. In fact, CNN News 18 has 2 of the 3 that are there. 2 happen to be from our network. So we are getting you very authenticated news, verified news, no fakery here. Just have a look, viewers. These are pictures from somewhere in Tel Aviv that seem to suggest that some of those missiles are getting through. Now, we were talking about, and I'm bringing Akanksha into this, we were talking about cluster ammunition being used by the Iranians, which means a missile comes in, it suddenly breaks up into several bits and bobs. It spreads over 8 kilometers, 6 kilometers, and then you suddenly have the interceptors getting really confused because they have several targets now to strike. And they don't know which one to go after. They get stretched, and some of these fall on the ground and they cause damage. Now, the Israelis have been very, very careful about not releasing too much of this material to the press or advertising it too much because obviously they don't want anyone to think that they are being attacked by Iran. It's part of PSYOPs in the info war.
Strategy overall in terms of cost effectiveness also, Rahul, it's high volume and low cost because the drones don't cost as much. But if you look at the missiles that are used to intercept these drones that are coming in, which are the loitering munitions, which you beautifully described, the ones that we are talking about, particularly in this conflict, are Shahid 136 and 131 loitering munitions. So let me break down the cost for our viewers. You are looking at, say, missiles which are used to intercept them costing $2.1 million to $3.5 million for ballistic missile interceptors. And what is the cost of these loitering munitions? $193,000 per drone. So one drone compared to say an interceptive missile is $2.1 million to going up to $3.5 million.
Low cost war, unconventional tactics. Pictures now coming in, and I've just put them out on the big wall for you to see, viewers. Pictures of a big meeting that Netanyahu is holding there. Those pictures coming out. This particular meeting is taking place to review what is going to be the next chapter. And I remember the Israelis have already come out and said that, look, fundamentally, we are thinking of the next stage along with our American partners. There's also consternation in DC right now because there are many people in DC who believe that the Israelis are talking Trump into a war that perhaps has no end, and that Trump doesn't have the tactical acumen, and neither does the team around him have the tactical acumen to anticipate what could happen next. So there's a lot of backlash against Israel in the United States media, the mainstream media. A large number of voters who were part of the MAGA movement, and you heard a voice here on CNN News 18 last night on the Hard Facts saying that they too were feeling now very, very uncomfortable with the fact that this war could drag on longer than they had anticipated. Let me go back to Akanksha for more on this. Akanksha, yes.
Absolutely. And right now, Israel, if I were to compare the strategy between Israel and the United States, I'll say Israel is still more strategized, Rahul. Because the United States, perhaps, as we are seeing the number of advisories today that have been issued, not just for Baghdad, but for key cities in Saudi Arabia, including Jeddah and Riyadh, only go on to indicate how they were lacking in terms of planning. They should have issued that advisory long before embarking on that joint strike, even if they were trying to be secretive about it. But it's the overall Gulf nations and their own US allies that are now taking pot shots at Donald Trump. They are saying that you should have informed us on time because they are not able to intercept the missiles that are coming in. A. B. Trump administration's officials themselves have gone on to indicate that they are lacking interceptors as far as their own US allied Gulf nations are concerned, whether that is UAE, Kuwait or even Qatar. Israel still, they're relying on the Iron Dome, and successfully so, which is why they're able to avert the number of casualties that we are seeing play out in Iran. But we'll have to see for how long will Israel be able to also hold on to its defense systems.
Okay, and also, viewers, big news coming out. An Iraqi Kurdish group, I think Akanksha, has just come out and said that a US oil production facility has been hit. And the production of this facility has been stopped. And the oil flow stopped. And that's the news. Let's just pull that one out and talk about
some
it.
breaking inputs. Iraqi Kurdish authorities have said that oil production at an oil field which was being operated by an US firm itself, N18G, has been halted following an attack. This is big news if we were to put this into perspective at a time when they are also propping up Kurdish forces, which, remember, are formidable forces. You have this information pouring in, Rahul?
Well, and more news coming in. The IDF has released a video of jets now flying into Iran, according to them. And they're saying, and let me just play this for you, it's there on our screens, hitting our PR in Iran. There it is. You can see that hitting our PR in Iran. It's an 8-second long clip, and it talks about how the Israelis are going in there and doing their bit to try, there it is. So I've halted this video. That's the IDF. Hitting our PR, it says at the bottom, in Iran with an emoji. There you can see it. That's the emoji there, which shows that, yeah, we are winning, we're powerful, we're going to hit them. and that's hitting our PR in Iran. The IDF releases this, and it talks about a distance of 1,800 kilometers. The pace is 600 kilometers an hour. Time is 3 hours. 3 hours it takes, and there's refueling. Those pictures, I'll just play them out again for you viewers. You can see those pictures. There you go. Those are the jets, and these are obviously bombers that are being used by Israel to target facilities, installations, etc., in Iran. We're going to take a very short break, viewers. We're going to return in just a few moments with many more updates in this rolling coverage of the war in Iran, a war which many people say is now a war without end.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens, right, sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US air base
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
No, that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand when it is targeting these air bases, Iran. We'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers, just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and counting, 600,000 and counting. This is in 6 days, 2 hours, 56 minutes and 39.40 seconds. Per second, the cost is only going up to $11,574 per hour. The cost is again $41 million and upwards, and per day the cost is going up to $1 billion per day. This cost on the war on Iran, that's what it's costing us, and these costs are only going to go up. When we come back, What's the recalibration? Which are the zones? And is there an effort to try and break Iran into multiple pieces? And will we have sectarian violence coming in very, very soon? The Kurds, the Azeris, and of course the Baloch on the other side. And there is a solid Sunni population near Sistan and Balochistan. All of those, will they start getting activated on ground? With Tom Cooper when we come back after a short break. These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. Yeah, sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another US air base
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
No, that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand when it is targeting these air bases, Iran. We'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream.
Viewers, welcome to our raw broadcast that is tracking the fury in the Gulf. In my hand is an important device. The news comes in and I put it out right there behind me. You can see that it just comes straight into our telephones after it is verified, and I can project this onto the screen. And there's big news coming in, viewers, because this is an innovation that you'll only see on CNN News 18. Big news coming in. I want to go straight across to Akanksha. Yes.
From the Iranian president himself, straight from the horse's mouth, Masoud Pezeshkian, in fact, going on to say that some countries have initiated efforts for mediation. Our response to them is clear. We are committed to lasting peace in the region, but we have not the slightest hesitation in defending the dignity and authority of our country. The audience for mediation should be those who, by underestimating the Iranian people, ignited the fire of provocation. The word is very clear. He's, of course, urging China, and we don't know what Dr. Jaishankar had to say to the Iranian deputy foreign minister as well, but he's made it clear that it was not Iran that started the fire. It is those who are underestimating the firepower, rather, of Iran, Rahul.
Well, it's day 7, viewers, and it's very difficult to exactly comment on who's winning this war. This war has turned into a battle of attrition between two sides, and I'm going to show you something now that we've put together for our viewers, for all of you, to give you a big sense of where the battle is now focused. It's focused on